horror, horror, horror. This is bad about society. And I'm just saying it like this so it sounds fun. Alrighty, welcome back to Cinema Pursuit. This week we have Catie back on. Happy birthday, Catie.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
And as it is her birthday, it is actually her choice for the movie that we're doing this week. We will have Zach's choice and my choice coming later on in the next couple months probably. But today we're talking about Bo Burnham's Inside. Inside seems like a very simple name, but it is Bo Burnham's Inside. Kat, why this movie?
Well, so when I found out that we were going to do movies for our birthdays, I got really excited. I was like, okay, we could do some classics, some stuff that I love from my childhood. We could do Princess Bride. We could do Spaceballs. I'm a big Mel Brooks girly, so just anything Mel Brooks was on my list. And then I was thinking of more recent movies, and I remembered that when Inside came out, it was so inspirational to me as an artist that I just keep circling back to it. And every year we watch this movie. So I'm like, it's the time of year. We usually watch it in the spring. I think this is a great selection, and I don't know where it would fit in the calendar and in our criteria of genres. So I said, screw it. I'm popping it on for my birthday. And honestly, great pick. I'm happy I selected it.
It's something where it's I told y'all we would have had it later. There's nothing where I was tempted to get to it, but there is so much to unpack with this movie. So I'm glad that you definitely brought it up earlier, that it probably a year earlier, 2 years earlier before I would have ever considered doing it, because it's not a typical thing.
Oh, no.
Because when I was looking at it on YouTube, it was, or not YouTube, but when I was looking at it on Google, it was saying, this is a musical, this is a drama, this is, a comedy special, but it's kind of...
It's more.
All those, but none of those, right?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people refer to it as even a comedy special, and I think that really does a disservice to it. Comedy special is when you just have a camera follow you on the stage with maybe a cute little opening. This was a complete film. And I don't even understand what the detractors would say to make this not a film. The runtime is about an hour and a half. That's film runtime. It has all the components of a film. It's cutting. It's, showing, has light. I'm fumbling my words here. But I shouldn't even have to explain this. It has the essence of everything that makes a film. So I'm just getting that out of the way. This is a film, and there's a lot of things that are even less filmy that people debate. Is this a film or not? So there's no debate around this. And I'm very glad you did pick it, Kat. This is one of my favorite movies. You can go on Letterboxd and you can see my list. This is still my favorite movie of the 2020 so far. I was very surprised by how long it stayed up there. But that's a testament to how good this film and how it still resonates with me. So I'm very happy you picked this, because that means I didn't have to pick it. So thank you.
I'm so happy with it. And when we rewatched it, I was like, every time I watch this movie, it gives me some I don't know, it gives me so much inspiration, but also it brings us back to a time where shit was wild. This is a COVID movie. I love this movie. It's inspirational to me as an artist, but also it brings us back to COVID. And it is the only film we have seen that shows the struggle of the situation, both to a personal level and to a societal level. And it's done in a way where you can still circle back and rewatch it and enjoy the film. It's not something where it's 2020 in a year, or I think there was something that came out where it was this is the year of 2020.
It was Death to 2020.
It was a little documentary.
Yeah, it was really bad.
And it was rough to watch because it was not an easy time. But it's entertaining. It's funny. There's a message behind every single element, and I love it.
And it's not like people haven't made movies that take place in 2020, lockdown movies. There's literally a rom-com or I think it's a heist movie or something that... It's Anne Hathaway, Chiwetel Ejiofor, directed by Doug Liman, a bunch of great people.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the ultimate thing. It's what did you do during COVID? What did you learn during COVID? Did you do some magical thing? And this is what Bo did in his little guest house behind his house.
I think that's a good point you're making there, Vikash. Some other people did make movies during COVID, but I think Bo was the only one to directly tackle the world we are living in with COVID. Most of these others tried to work around the constraints, and he fought it head on. And not only did he have the courage to fight it head on with his movie, he also made a great movie. If you look at the other COVID movies that came out, no, they're not great. And this one is just extraordinary. So it's a miracle that he was able to do both those things and pull together something that worked.
And I will say I like rewatching it now. I was like, oh yeah, this is it kind of is a comedy. It's a stand-up special in the sense that like Bo makes observations and postulations about like society. That's what a lot of comedic, comedians do. But he like the story of it itself is not that. It happens, it's interspersed, but that's not the story. The story really is him trying to do that, but then him kind of getting lost in the way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the purest sense of him trying to go and find something great, he obviously knows what he's doing with everything that we see, but he's getting lost within it. And that's why in the back half of this, we see some brutally honest stuff going on that we haven't seen anybody else put to film, especially in a time like COVID.
I still don't think we have either.
Agreed.
Because that's why it blends itself to being a conversation about like, YouTube. Like, okay, Kat, what's your background with Bo Burnham first though? Did you always watch him? What's the situation with that? Because I don't think Zach was ever watching him or any of his content, really.
No, I wasn't.
So Bo Burnham came on my radar when I'm 8 years younger than him, okay? And he grew up in the North Shore and I grew up in the South Shore. So like he was in the more wealthy area of Massachusetts. So
like I wouldn't know. I know geography, but I don't know that geography.
But because he was a YouTuber that was blowing up really well and he was like in the area type of deal, he popped up on my radar like probably middle school to high school, like in that age range where people are going online and starting to like explore YouTube. I mean, he could have popped up when I was a little younger too, but I don't remember as thoroughly as I do as like high school. Like, my favorite song was Words, Words, Words because it just kept like playing off of itself and it was just self-deprecating. And I was probably like, when did it come out? Like 2010. So I was like 12 when it came out. So that's like 12-year-old ADHD juice right there. It was great.
And I ask because my situation is a bit different. I saw his stuff. It's like if you're watching YouTube, Bo Burnham's going to come up because he has like a lot of viral songs and things like that. So I've seen a little bit of that. I knew who he was. I've seen his comedy specials. But then it was really like probably a little bit before 8th grade, like 2016, 17, somewhere there, where I was like, oh yeah, I really like what he's doing.
You mean the movie 8th grade?
In that time. The movie 8th grade.
Not my 8th grade.
Bo Burnham directed a movie. Yeah. Bo Burnham directed a movie called 8th Grade with Elsie Fisher, and it's a fantastic movie. One of my favorite movies, which, if Zach permits, we will actually do on the pod too, because I really do love that movie. But it was then that I actually really liked him, because I saw some of his stuff, and he had stuff that was at first a bit shock value, sort of like playing the YouTube game stuff, and I wasn't really interested in it. And I think he's grown a big amount in the last at least 5 to 10 years as an artist. And that's why I like him. I just like the first stuff, the original stuff. It's good. It's not my thing. But then
he also started as a kid.
I'm not shitting
You're
on him.
attacking a child. I'm kidding.
No,
he's literally sitting there at one point in this film watching himself like he's like Orson Welles. And I'm just like, okay, like you understand like where he's trying to get with this. He's like, am I still doing the same things I was doing then? But I think he's doing the same thing, but he's found himself in a different way doing it.
Yeah.
Because even he says is like, I used to be like when it comes to like religion, I was like, I thought this before and I thought I was really cool when I was 18 and I've changed my ideas about this world and all these other things about just what he believes the world to be. So he's grown. He's growing, and it's like you said, he's an inspiration as to how we should grow as people and as artists.
I do want to take a stab at like he probably never had the closure of that early part of his life where he was a child star, went on YouTube and became famous off that, very quickly was touring to do comedy, very quickly had a like sitcom that didn't last very long, Zach Stone.
But it was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
And my guess is that he's been working, and he never had a chance to really reflect on that part of his life and really close the book on it. And part of this movie does, and if you watch the outtakes too, he talks about this some more too, this movie is really a way for him to close the book on that early part of his life by really going back to his roots and doing the songs on the piano that made him famous and made him a household name.
So that's something I wanted to touch on is during COVID, a lot of artists circled back to their roots. They used their comfort mediums as a way to process their thoughts and feelings of the situation, because everyone experienced COVID differently, but it was still a whole overarching thing that we all went through together. And this is just one of the many masterpieces that came out of COVID. And he circled back to his roots, his YouTube roots. And you're right, he is reflecting on it. He's having some closure with it, but he's hitting it with a skill that he has developed over time. Shut up. But like, it's just one of those things where I really appreciate that you can see how he's grown since he started because he's doing it in the same way, you know? He's basically making what he would make as a YouTuber.
And it's just essentially Mia from La La Land doing her one-woman show, except
It
instead of
is.
theater, he's just doing it in this room. But I want to round it back to like, it kind of sounds like we're shitting on YouTube, which we're not.
No, we're
Because
not.
I think the thing is that YouTube is the most artistically free place online for you to like post something that you've made and just send it out to people, and it's going to get received by them. It's something that you're not going to get in a studio system. You're not going to get working with other people. Not that YouTube doesn't have that. YouTube has literally been taking away from classic media. They make reality shows. They make shows like Cribs. They make journalist programs. They make science. They make so much programming on YouTube. And it's just people doing it. It might be them, maybe 10 people, whatever company they have. They create companies and they do their work on YouTube solely. And it rivals classic media in the greatest way possible. Some people, they move to classic media from YouTube like Bo did, but it's not like they don't realize that like YouTube is free. It's, you can post whatever you want in a sense that I can just convey my message to somebody, to everyone. And then only thing I have to worry about is like Universal Music Group trying to take down some music. Besides that, I can do whatever I want. So big ups to YouTube, even though there's like a back and forth with people getting paid and stuff like that, but it's still somewhere that you have that freedom. And this feels like Bo didn't have to release this on Netflix. He could have put this on YouTube and it'd be the greatest thing YouTube has ever done.
That's what he did with the outtakes.
Yeah, they were on YouTube first.
Yeah.
So
he shared them with the world because he wanted to, not because he was trying to make money off of it. It was a passion project, of course. Like, we can see it in the film. This is a thing that he worked on. He put all his energy into, all his love and hate and trauma. And, you know, it's wonderful if you analyze it. I have seen it probably like 6 times in the last like 3 years, which is ridiculous actually. But like, this is the most student film vibe, elevated production movie I've seen in a while, and it is quite honestly probably the most impressive film I've ever seen.
Yeah, I do want to take what you said, something that's important.
Or here, what's
I don't want to call it a student film where it's like,
it's not a student film.
No.
Well, I know, but it has that vibe, that creativity that only students have, people that haven't been like forced into the mold of an industry.
I'll tell you, but let me tell you why. Because I agree. It's because YouTube, old YouTube, the way it was set up was that it really was for passion projects. Early on, either there was no money in it or the revenue sharing wasn't that robust. To where back then, the only people who had incentive to post on there were people who wanted to post things purely for the world to see. Old YouTube was, like you said, the most free place to share your work. And it had this barrier to entry, though, that maybe you don't see on something like Instagram and TikTok Reels, to where you had to put something out that was substantial in terms of time, because people didn't want to click on a 2-second video. People didn't want to click also on an hour-long video. There's a sweet spot about 10 minutes, which the algorithm rewarded of, I want you to get on there and show me what you want to show the world. Nowadays, when you get on YouTube, I can go on my YouTube now. It's all movie trailers put out by a corporation, highlights from sports, and this probably reflects on me more than YouTube, but
yeah, it does.
It eventually became a place for corporations to also use, and that killed a lot of the independent spirit of YouTube, and a lot of those creators have either aged out of it or have moved on to other platforms which don't reward that level of input and investment into their work, which is really unfortunate because it was a really special time, that kind of 2000s YouTube, that was a really special place.
it was a wild west back then
Mhm.
because there was no algorithm that was shaping it. But I will say there are still people, they might not have, millions and millions of followers, but depending on what niche you're following, for me, it's, science stuff, maybe cooking stuff, maybe, all sorts of random stuff that I like. And I see so many people who make fantastic content that I get more out of that than maybe watching a TV show most nights. And that says something.
Is Bo Burnham the first filmmaker to come out of YouTube?
He's one of the few. There's a guy called Joe Pera. He's made a few films.
Okay.
You haven't seen any of them. Arctic was a good one. The guys who made, I think it's called Let Me In last year, Australian movie. If you watch they essentially made, they're called the Raka Raka Brothers. They made essentially the Australian Jackass for YouTube. And then they transitioned into making a horror movie for I think it's A24, and they just murdered it. But it's like, you see where some people, they do transition into classic media in a good way. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and judge other people for what they've done, but it's like these people can still go back and make stuff that's compelling on YouTube. But Danny Trachtenberg, y'all haven't seen Prey, but y'all saw 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
And the pilot for The Boys,
Yeah.
he directed that too.
But he's from YouTube.
So he made a Portal short.
Oh,
And then J.J. Abrams, that's the guy.
Huh.
He made the J.J. Abrams saw it, brought him in, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Now he's making another Predator movie in the future. So get to watching that soon, man.
No, it's incredible because like you said, the barrier to entry to YouTube was and still is so low that you don't need the traditional ways of becoming a filmmaker, to where you can be from any background, you can be from any culture, you can go on YouTube and you can share what you think is a good piece of art to the world, and if the world responds to it, you can start to build a career. And we've seen that with some of these guys who've made it big out of there.
The only barrier is time, motivation, and creation. That's about it.
Sure.
You have to have something there.
Yeah.
But I think what you're speaking to is that you have, what Kat was saying, is you're saying student film. I wouldn't say that per se.
No,
because
but that's what I
we
keep
have
branding
people
it as.
like PTA, Nolan, these guys didn't go to film school.
No.
But they're some of our greatest filmmakers because they are students of good cinema. And Bo is obviously too. I think they're every single placement of camera this man has in this movie has meaning to emotionally, it's emotionally motivated camera movement and placement, because he knows that I'm going to I'll get into it in production value. I'm not going to get into it right now.
Don't dig too far into it. I was just touching on how it's so original and so creative, and you rarely see that level of freedom and flow in industry and corporate related films. It's independent, student, and then really small miscellaneous. And Bo's film is just the definition of creative.
I would almost say, but freedom, I would say it's almost the opposite. He did something that a lot of old films had to do, or films on small budgets. He gave himself constraints. Really hard constraints. It's one room, it's one actor, and he's not allowed to bring in anything outside of it that is not something a regular person or he would be able to get.
You can tangible freedom.
No, I know, but I know.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is basically he gave himself restraints, and sometimes when you have these restraints, you have to be more creative to overcome them, as opposed to, you see these massive budget movies that's $200 million, green screen, do whatever you want, and they're just very uncreative because there's no constraints, so you don't have to really work hard to achieve anything. Bo had to work really hard to achieve every single portion of what he did in this film, because if he didn't overcome those obstacles, it would look bad. It would look like a student film, like you said.
You know why? Because it's a sandbox. He
There you
drew the
go.
lines. He made his rules, right? And I
job.
think even Christopher McQuarrie, he talks about it for himself, for Tom Cruise, their Mission Impossible movies. But why is it that he's a great filmmaker and he does it for himself, but it matters on that scale, and it does matter on this scale too? But that being said, this man pretty much had just the craziest Amazon orders just every week, every day, just ordering
that's what I was
stuff, right? That's
saying.
what that was.
I was like, dude,
That's why I was
I
laughing.
want to know how his Amazon orders went, because he had to have gotten all this equipment online. I'm sure he had some, but not the quantity of shit that he had. And then in the outtakes, he has a lot of sample shots, brainstorming different ideas on things. And one of them was a fucking drone. And the camera quality wasn't great. And also the way it moved was a little funny. So I'm sure that's part of why he didn't pick to use it. But it was just really funny to see just a hey, on top of all this other crap I got a drone.
Yeah, that was in the outtake.
I'm gonna get into all the technical stuff.
Yeah.
But I did want to touch on the auteur theory because I was mentioning PTA and like Nolan, and I went to we already talked about it before on the pod, but I went to the Savannah Film Festival this past October, and I saw Ava DuVernay and Jeff Nichols' new movies, and Jeff got the award for Best Auteur Director. And auteur theory postulates that like, oh, because this one person was here, that vision is what's running this 100%. If they're not there, this is not working.
Okay.
And you have a lot of filmmakers that are that, that stringent upon their movies, like a Fincher or something like that. These people do get their visions together. But what Jeff said, he got the award and he was like, yeah, I'm grateful that y'all gave this to me. But I work with all the same people, whether it's, like David Wingo does his music, Adam Stone does his cinematography, the lady that does his costume designing is the same person, his editor is the same person. He's always working with his tribe of people, just as Nolan does, just as PTA does. And it's like, I've cultivated this group of people, and this is all of us working together, and that's what's emanating this sort of like vision always.
I love
It's
that.
not just him. So this is the only argument you have ever that like, oh, auteur theory actually exists because this is Bo doing everything pretty much himself besides some like sound mixing and some coloring. Everything else is him.
Yeah.
So this is the only support you have for the auteur theory, in my opinion, in a respectable way. Because I don't want to say that it's like every time, and that's not to discount, Jeff Nichols, Nolan, Fincher, whoever, because they can work with people and get a great vision. But this is the only time where it's like, it is one person doing this shit.
I see it. I get it.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't think you're being like, I don't think you're discrediting them by saying that either.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting part of that. I think the only other time you see that is like what we talked about before, like YouTube, where you see people with great ideas go and make these films, but the reality of big budget filmmaking, or even medium and small budget filmmaking, any budget filmmaking, is you have to have a team. And like you said, this is the rare, almost never instance of that not being the case, which makes it even more incredible.
And I think my argument is that auteur theory doesn't need to exist besides this movie, because it's like these people work with groups of people, and these people, the people you hire and the people you work with, inherently make your movie better, or you raise them up to make great content. I was talking about on Arrival how there was like this Montreal-based sound mixer who won an Oscar, and he worked on this on Arrival, and he's never done anything else that's like this big. But it's like, it's not like he's not doing a good job. It's just he worked with Denny, and their collaboration brought something fantastic forward, right?
Yeah.
So it's always interesting.
I did want to add one more thing. Something that I think we need to call out in the performance of this movie is that this is one of the few movies I've ever seen that toes the line of reality and performance in a way where you're never sure the whole time what is real and what's not. The only other one I've ever seen is probably the Banksy documentary, where you're not sure if he's screwing with you the whole time or not, and if it's even him or all that stuff. But all I have to say is that it gives this a certain amount of credibility too when you're watching it. It's like, it's not just, hey, Bo made a really great movie about the pandemic and about the social aspects of it. Bo actually is going through this stuff in some degree. And he's showing this as like, this is what he's going through. And there is a lot of performance in this movie, but you don't know where the line is. You really don't. What part of this is documentary and what part of this is film? And the answer is, we don't know. If he's talked about it, to be honest, I don't want to read about it because I like the illusion.
I think emotionally, I think there's only one place, which I will mention soon, where I can tell he's acting. But I think the emotional message of his narrative through making this film is true. So
Authentic.
Emotionally true, but he might have been like, okay, one more take. Let me do this again. Oh, that was me crying, okay? Because you can't hear me. You can't see me crying. It just sounded like I was moaning.
No, I mean, it's very rare. It's like the Joaquin Phoenix movie, like I Never Was Really Here or whatever. Or no, not that one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
But yeah, that one where you're like, you don't know if he's screwing with you, how much of this is performance art and how much of this is real. Bo's doing this, so he's not the only one to ever do this, but it just, because it's talking about such a serious subject like the pandemic, it is just much more powerful because you can really empathize with him. He gets a lot of pathos from this, from giving that sort of performance.
Oh, so also, when Inside came out, it was in May of 2021. This is soon after vaccines started becoming available to the public, and we were able to finally get out of quarantine and our relative isolation. So this film was perfectly timed, whether he meant to or not. It came out at the right time for us to say this was what we experienced, and now we are all stepping out at the end of the movie with Bo.
Mhm.
And finally being done with it. Not really, but you know.
Yeah, if there was one word I could use to describe this movie when I watched it the first time, it would be cathartic. It was a cathartic experience to basically relive everything that we went through on a social level through this movie, and at the end step out with Bo into what felt like for the first time a world that we could enter again, a real world.
I don't know about y'all. When I watched this, I was in a dour mood. I felt like it was a revisitation of I felt the very present, threat and horror, a dread that was very real then. And now it doesn't feel as, the magnitude is less, but even then it's like the bag of rocks still hit me, but they just hit a little differently because we've had time that's gone on. And we always talk about how time is going to be the truth teller. And this is one thing that will age well.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
That was my biggest surprise, is that since I've watched this at least once a year, more usually since it came out, it actually has gotten even better, because if you take the COVID context out of it and start to look at it into a film that's analyzing the world around us, there's so much more in there. It's like I'm seeing more and more stuff every time I watch it, which is not what you would think for a movie that's really, really funny and full of songs. And actually, there's more depth to it than just being a COVID movie.
Yeah, I analyzed every song on this rewatch. Like, every song that came up, I wrote the name, and then I wrote the message and any kind of details I wanted to point out with the production, because this is very layered. And he acknowledges that in one of the skits. He's like, oh yeah, I like to put a message in all my shit. And I see it, I appreciate it, and he did it very well, because I can watch it and see the message and still find it entertaining and a good watch without getting horribly depressed.
And I think the best part of it is that it does take place today. I'm always complaining that we need artists making work that is contemporarily set.
Yep.
And then we can, go back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and then watch this and see what the emotional, thermometer, what the temperature was in the room collectively from this artist's perspective. And this is exactly what that is. And it's very rare to get in this pure of a form, because we will look back at this and be like, has the world not changed enough? Like, why is this still going on? Why is this still an issue? But he brings it around at the end. I think there's a good level of optimism that he ends with. If it's not there, it would not have worked for me. Because it would just be horror, horror, horror. This is bad about society, and I'm just saying it like this so it sounds fun.
So, Vikash, like you were saying, this time when I watched, I actually at the end imagined, okay, what if this was a downer ending? Like, I was having that mentality as I was watching it near the end. And you're right, this movie would not be a favorite of mine. I don't think I would like it as much. It would still be good, but it would really betray what this needed to be at that time. We did not need a downer movie. There's reasons that shows like Ted Lasso did really good during the COVID era, is because people didn't need that sort of, didn't need negativity in their life. And so his decision to say, hey, there's still hope for us, even though all this is wrong right now, was important. And I'm glad he made that decision.
Because the issue is that, just philosophically, just as human beings, our social setting, even if we are antisocial, is that people need to belong to another, meaning that we want to be outside, we want to be with other people. People can say all they want, that oh, I'd rather watch a movie on streaming. No, I still want to go to the theater. I still want to go outside. I still want to adventure out into this world where humans are present. And to say that your solitary confinement that you've set up for yourselves at your house is better than anything else out there, I think it's us just playing along with the issues that Bo has in this movie with society and lying to ourselves that we want to stay inside. And obviously there's a bit of a double entendre that we talk about it being inside of this room, but we're also being let into the inside of Bo's mind in some great ways. And obviously, like I said, we get that with comedians, but this feels, obviously with the actual narrative of the movie, we see some emotionally honest stuff that does break you. Alrighty, right into action is the juice. The most juiciest scenes of this movie. Another juice on juice movie that doesn't fit the form but it very much does fit the form of our format to have us have conversations about some of the most lovely things we found in this movie. So, Zach, what is your most juice scene of this movie?
Yeah, so, Action is the Juice is an interesting choice for a movie like this because what are you going to do?
There's some shit.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I really did think about it, and really there is a scene with a lot of juice here. So, white woman's Instagram, but not for probably what you think. So, there's a specific part in this song, and it's always gotten me. And this is the first time I was watching the movie. This was what made me think, oh man, like this is something more than just a funny song movie. Like this is something, there's something here. So there's a specific part in this where he switches from the funny and well choreographed images mocking Instagram photos and he goes into a monologue. I'll go ahead and read it here. It goes, her favorite photo of her mom. The caption says, I can't believe it. It's been a decade since you've been gone. Mama, I still miss you. I miss sitting with you in the front yard. Still figuring out how to keep living without you. It's got a little better, but it's still hard. Mama, I got a job I love in my own apartment. Mama, I got a boyfriend. I'm crazy about him. Your little girl didn't do too bad. Mama, I love you. Give a hug and kiss to dad. And then it just goes straight back to the funny Instagram photos. It's jarring, but it's jarring for a reason. Because it captures how social media has also become an outlet for grief. In between all these silly little pictures, there's like real loss, and people are open about real loss in ways they never would have been. And it's really powerful to just throw that into the middle of might be one of the funniest and well choreographed sketches in the whole movie, and it just gut punches you, and then it doesn't acknowledge it again. It just goes out, and that's an incredible piece of writing. Bo was awesome for that, so that's my choice.
And it goes into the observational part of Bo, where it's like, I see it in myself to where it's like you experience these things, but you have to understand all the parts of it. And if he just had the song without that, it wouldn't work. This is, that one little part is the reason why it all works. It's a consistent piece in and of itself that works outside of the entire film. And that's what this whole movie kind of feels like. If you watch a musical, this part of the musical is trying to set up this part of the musical. This is something where it's like, this little piece is a thing of itself, and then we move on to the next one and that's a thing of itself, but we have a narrative in between that is kind of putting it all together, which is a musical, but it's like he's operating on a different level with this, and that's why you can't say that this is just a movie, right? It's just a piece of art.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wrote for my little analysis comment, I said people try to share things that they like, and so there are definitely some stereotypes, but the memorial post about the mom just shows in a very change of pace in the song, but perfectly done. It shows that people go through shit and people have real lives that they're going through, and it's mixed in with all their fun, like, for them posts.
Yeah, think about when you're scrolling on Facebook, you can see just like ads, marketplace stuff, like your friend just completed some level on Candy Crush. People still play that, I don't know. And then you scroll and then someone's like, hey, by the way, here's pictures of my dad. He died a year ago. And then you keep scrolling and it's some other stupid post some third cousin made about something. And it's that's reality when you're scrolling. So how he just threw it in there like that was just really smart, and it shows that he is all on social media and connected with the intricacies that you see for someone who uses it. You'll see in movies sometimes where someone wants to display social media, and it's very clear that maybe their generation doesn't use it in the same way that maybe our generation would, where we're constantly consuming things out of it. It's just clear that he uses this stuff.
Yeah, and like, I am a white woman, and I do use Instagram as my primary means of social media. And while some of those stereotypical photos are mine, most of them are not, but that was because I'm too lazy and cheap to do any of the fun photo shoots. That's a sad thing. I wish I could recreate this video, actually. But I am another person that will go and make a serious post about something that I care about, or about the people around me, or maybe my comment on something in society that's going on. It'll be a serious post mixed in with all the fun, and it's just real. It's a funny song, but like the rest of this film, it's very real and it grounds you. That one little verse brings you centered and is like, oh yeah, we're making fun of people, but they're still people.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to a bigger thing that he talks about. I'm not in a place to judge anybody, but he has the line that he says on the little stand-up that it's like, do we have to share our opinions and thoughts about everything online?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I just mean, I'll put it this way. I am on social media. I talk about so much stuff online, but you will not find a lick of my personal life per se on there. And that's my own choice. And that being said, it's like, who am I to judge people for what they do? But the reason why people do it, you know, as a non-participator in a sense, my perspective to it is that people want connection. And it's the connection that Bo is looking for himself too when he performs on stage and why he's performing this entire piece.
Yeah.
So,
No,
and it's
you're
something
right.
that we all want. It's like an innate thing that is possessed within our hearts and minds.
You
But-
watch my Snapchat monologues,
Yeah. No,
my
true.
video diaries.
That's true.
he does.
Nobody
that's
will
true.
find that unless you know me personally. Sorry.
He
private.
did throw that part in there where he says like, and it's you know, it's supposed to be funny, but he's just like, can anybody just shut the fuck up about anything? Just about anything.
No.
And it's clearly, like you said, like
I can.
he's tired of the fact that everybody has to always comment on everything. Everybody feels like they have to say something about everything, and that's just not the case.
And when do people comment the most, Zach?
When they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Or when it's something negative.
Yeah.
Because
God.
recently, I do not want to say this, but when Madam Web came out, it is some of the most disturbingly stupid things I've ever, illogical emotional responses and sharings I've seen of people just like, oh, hey, this movie's bad. Let's go watch it. Here are my thoughts on this movie that we all know that is bad. It's like, no, where's the novelty within this? Do you want to give a substantive remark as to like, what's going on with this? What Stuckman did for himself is like, oh yeah, like let me talk about how this studio system is messed up and how these actors got trapped into this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, how many people do that? He got vilified for that. Like, how are we supposed to exist on this world in this online apparatus in a way where we can have conversations that actually matter? We can't just dismiss each other. So
No, I think that's a good point. Negativity drives engagement. These apps encourage negativity, and people
Yep.
who've been online for a while have learned to discuss things in a negative way. It feeds into itself. So yeah, this is kind of the world we live in when it comes to this stuff.
and that hatred that they all sow comes into their minds, and it just sows more hatred in this world that we don't need.
Exactly.
And I'd like to think that Bo is trying to say something substantive about that. And sadly, what he's saying here is going to age worse. It's going to
Yeah.
age well, but because it is something that has become an actual epidemic, pandemic of our minds.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who participates, and I think we all participate in
Yeah.
this.
100%.
This will be posted on something that participates within it. And there's a lot of paradoxical things he talks about within this, and this is the paradox of our existence. And why are we talking about philosophical things? Is because that's what good art does. So
And this whole conversation stemmed from a song about white women posting Instagram photos.
Vikash, what did you put as your accent as the juice scene?
So there's a point more than halfway through the film where Bo is losing his mind because he's turned 30 and he can't figure out how to end this project that he's been doing. He's been working on for 6, 7, 8 over a year, and he starts crying to the camera. He's like, he literally puts his head into his hands and starts doing like the most exaggerated crying I've ever seen. I don't know if it's real. I'm not trying to shit on the man if it is real, but then it transitions right into get your fucking hands off.
Get up out of your seat.
All eyes on me is
All eyes on
my
me.
It's a great transition.
all eyes on me is
God.
my action of the juice scene, because it's, you know, around 79 minutes into the movie that this happens, and it's the only song in this movie where he's actually like distorted his voice, and it's
Mhm.
almost this ethereal, almost like not, I wouldn't say godlike voice, but it's like, you know, it's a deeper voice. It's Morgan Freeman vibes, and quite literally I think it's one of the few times where he's almost peering into your souls. The close-up that we have of his eyes is very intimate. And if you look at the outtakes, he has it in a bunch of different situations, but this is the only one where he keeps it in, and you feel the full effect of it, where it's like, it looks like he's looking at us. And through that, he obviously has a lot of stuff obviously going on within the song where he gets out of the song and he has a bit where he actually confides with us finally as to what's been going on. So he has an interlude within the song All Eyes on Me, which also is a Tupac song.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. But he says, you want to hear a funny story? So 5 years ago, I quit performing live comedy because I was beginning to have severe panic attacks while on stage, which is not great a place to have them. So I quit and I didn't perform for 5 years. And I spent that time improving myself mentally. And you know what? I did. I got better. So much better. In fact, that in January of 2020, I thought, you know what? I should start performing again. I've been hiding from the world and I need to re-enter. And then the funniest thing happened. And then we get pulled right back into the song. And obviously, you know, that boogeyman that he never mentions in this is COVID. But he goes into it. He's talking about like the oceans are rising. Like the world is going to end. And he says, oh, the world already did. And I think what I was talking about before also is that it's this isolation that is really bringing and breeding this sort of issue to him. And obviously you could get into the breakdown of all those lines, but I think one of the things that he's trying to do with this is he talks about apathy, which I will get into that line in a minute, but this is him being Batman, and Batman Begins, because he's talking about how the symbol of Batman has to be something that shakes people out of apathy. He says, oh, the ocean's rising, I should give a shit, but you need to try. You need to try and do something with this world, even though we know these things are bad in this world. I think within the 5 years that Bo had, he realized and saw he actually grew, like you were saying, Zach. He had time to actually sit there with himself. He's like, yeah, all the systems that we live in are kind of messed up. They're not really helping people as much as we want them to help people. But despite that, we should still move in this world as people and try to be better. And I brought in Batman, but it's like just on a basic level as humans, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, that interlude in the song is just extremely tragic. Like, it's like you said, it takes a lot to admit that to anybody that, one, I had panic attacks and that's why I didn't perform on stage, and then have to admit to the tragedy of I was finally ready to come back and then the world went to hell. And it's like we talked about the White Woman's Instagram. He sandwiches a pretty, this time maybe not funny, but an entertaining song, and he sandwiches just tragedy in the middle of it and then brings you right back to what's trying to distract you from that tragedy.
But I don't think he's necessarily distracting it from, it's like he's using it as, it's the creation of All Eyes on Me that is, it's like he's trying to get, he's trying to get you through the dread of what he's going through with the thing that's getting him through it, which is the creation of this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is like, it's a fantastic song. And it's got this extremely dark theme to that interlude that makes the song. But he still ends up kind of leading it with optimism in my head, at least.
I think it's really well done. It's clearly meant to be reminiscent of a concert. Like, the way that the auto-tune and, like, voice adjusting is, the lights, the camera. He takes the camera and does the, like, up close. It's like he's taking someone's cell phone and doing a selfie, because sometimes people do that at concerts.
100%.
It's a classic story of trying to build yourself up again, and the unfortunate stuff in the world stops you. And it's a very classic ending song for a concert. So it, like, feeds into everything. There's a nice little monologue with a story, and you're right, like it just ties the message together really well, and it grounds the audience into the reality while you're listening to this fun and entertaining song.
They stab you in the ribs. They give you a little sucker punch, and that's what that is. But it's I think it's the most emotional one, where it's like in one song we see a bit of what's been going on with him, what's going on right now, which is the song, and then what he's trying to get done afterwards, which is, you know, obviously after the movie we see what the ending is trying to get into the light of the world. Like I said, I see it in a positive turn as to, like, yeah, it's pretty horrifying what he's going through, but I think he's trying to show that I go through this, everyone else goes through this, but despite all that, we have to keep going. And I think it's a theme that he tackles in 8th grade. He talks about, I made this movie because I have this anxiety, and what's the best way to do it is a 13-year-old girl. If a 13-year-old girl is having this same anxiety that this 30-something-year-old man is, we all go through that sort of universality of what you're talking about with White Woman's Instagram, is that we have a lot of good times, we also have a lot of bad times. And it's like the karmic cycle of the world is, you know, very circular in that sense of, like, if you don't have bad times, you're not going to enjoy the good times.
So,
Kat, hit us with your action as the juice scene.
I chose Welcome to the Internet.
Mm.
It is essentially a one shot. And when I messaged everyone today saying I accidentally started watching Inside again, it's because I went to go watch Welcome to the Internet. And while watching it, I was trying to count how many times he did a different camera angle. And there are about 4 different angles. But then he does like the really quick whipping back and forth. And I lost count at like 8. I was like, this is too much. But it's still essentially just one big long shot. Really well done. The message is just so obvious, but so true. The internet holds so much. It is the world that we live in now. And there's good and bad. But the internet's bad is very toxic, and it can hold so much depressing, and it can hold the reality of the world. Like, let me scroll to some text. Here's a tip for straining pasta. Here's a 9-year-old who died. We've got movies and doctors and fantasy sports and a bunch of colored pencil drawings of all the different characters in Harry Potter fucking each other. That's just the definition of the internet right there. I didn't intentionally pull up the Harry Potter quote, but I went for the fact that the 9-year-old died, but I think that just worked
Every
out.
time, you remember the sock puppet thing with the Harry Potters? He
Yes.
should have brought that up.
Harry
That's
Potter
the
Puppet
thing I
Pals.
always remember.
Potter Puppet
Yep.
Pals, yeah. Oh no, I remember that. But Welcome to the Internet is just a really obvious way of portraying just what the vast quantity of like content there is out there. But we as people have to be responsible for what we take in. We have to understand that we are entering this space where it's going to have both good and bad. And you're going to see some brutally honest truths, but also you're going to see some really bad stuff that isn't true. And
I think this is
but it's like
edification.
Yeah,
For
you get a
both.
little bit of
It's-
everything all the time. And
Yes.
then
But in a sense
Where-
that he's giving us this song, and I think it's one of the
Mhm.
most listened songs that he has. Like, everybody's looking up the lyrics. Like,
Yeah.
if you look at all the stats, it's the one that's got the most looked up lyrics. But in a sense, is he's writing all this stuff down, but it's him kind of like, I have all these thoughts about the world. I'm pulling them in. I'm
Exactly.
making this song, but it's like as much as it is for sharing, it's for me. It's a reminder that this is what I'm getting into. I'm
Yep.
famous. People are going to see me. I am seen, but look at what else. Like, I'm beside all this stuff. It could very much be, a Bo Burnham video, and then think about the kid right next to each other, right?
Yeah, and like the chorus, could I interest you in everything all the time? A bit of everything all of the time. Apathy's a tragedy and boredom is a crime. Anything and everything all the time. But the fact, like, the boredom is a crime, just that one sentence is the reality of everyone now. I mean, if we want to get really, like, above it all, like 3,000 feet or something like that, 30,000 feet, whatever the phrase is, you are on your phone all day. I go and I visit people and, we'll chat and we'll hang out, but people have their phones out. People are messaging other people or scrolling, or you're sitting in silence with your friends and your partners and you're both just like looking at TikToks and Reels or like scrolling on Reddit. And it's not a bad thing, but it's showing that we don't have the patience to just live in the moment. We want to be plugged in all the time. And when you're plugged
It is
in
a
all the
bad thing.
time, you're exposed to this vast list of shit.
It is a bad thing because our minds are
I
ever
just didn't want
fleeting.
to call out my husband.
I'm trying not.
I'm calling myself out. I think
I
we're
mean,
all,
me
we're
too.
counting.
We're all
in this-
culpable.
We're
of
all
that.
guilty of it.
But the thing is that, I mean, you should take the time to be present.
Yes.
And to bring back Kung Fu Panda is Oogway, before he passes away in that film, he talks about how the past is gone, the future's coming, but you have to live in the present. It's called the present because it is a gift. And that if you don't live within this moment, then you're not actually living, right? And it doesn't take me to go to I don't have to go to China. I don't have to go to Fiji to live a good life. I have to be present within what I'm living in. I should be grateful for whatever I do have in this life. We live in a population of 4% of the world that people are vying to get into every single day. And that's all to say that what he's talking about in Welcome to the Internet is that we have this place where we can all go to. We have access through these little
Everyone
devices
has
that sit in our
access,
pocket.
yeah.
And it's got, just like anything else in this world, it's good for you till it's not.
Yep.
You can eat bananas, but how many bananas is going to be enough for potassium poisoning to kill you? But it's
Too
like
many apples will give you patient, apparently. Read a Reddit story about that one.
Nice.
yeah, because it's a lot of fiber, so you're packing yourself up.
It's true. No, listen.
But
this
it's
is just
like-
me
but
proving a
it's-
point that this song's accurate because I just went on a side note.
But it's like, that's the beauty of Welcome to the Internet.
Yeah.
And I think Zach's going to get into it more as we go on, too.
Yeah, I'm being really restrained because I don't want to go into my spiel I have for a future section. But I have thought about this song a lot, and you guys have hit the nail on the head there. So I'm not going to say anything yet.
We can get right into production value. So, production value, Zach, the most impressive part of this movie, whether it's the artist behind the movie, it's a shot, scene, moment, detail, production value, what does it scream out inside for you?
I mean, the most noticeable part to me every time I watch this is just use of the practical light effects, specifically the projector. It's a great prop for this movie because, one, it ensures the credibility that he's just doing this in his mother-in-law suite in his backyard. I assume. I don't know where it's at. But him being so...
Quick side note,
Yeah.
This is the house that the director that directed Hustlers, like the J-Lo movie, Lorene Scafaria, she's in some other... She's actually an actress. She did some of Succession season 4 too. She's a director. She was Beau's girlfriend at the time of like 9-10 years, and they actually had this house together. It's the house from Nightmare on Elm Street, actually. So his last special actually ends in this little thing. So it's like he's performing in there at the end, and then he walks out, and then this is almost like a thing where it's like, I'm walking back, I'm coming back into the existence of like creating this art.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well,
But get back into production
sorry,
value.
yeah. What I'm trying to say is that it's the creativity of him taking something as simple as a projector and finding very smart ways to use it that not only enhance the message of his film, but also makes what would otherwise be bland scenes in his film into something that is like incredible. That's the real production value for me. It's doing something with nothing, which he does a lot of in this film.
And it speaks to the way that he shot it too. I think majority of this is shot at night, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, he was in a relationship. He is obviously doing other stuff, or was he writing during the day, shooting at night? He's made a lot of specific decisions as a director. That's like, I'm going to approach it this way. I'm only going to do it at this time. If you watch the outtakes, at the end of the outtakes, he kind of does like a meta thing of like, he's editing it and then it comes into like his final cut and we see it. And one thing that I saw was it was 4:01 a.m. when he finished this thing, like the outtakes themselves. But it's
I think
he's working through the night.
There's one where he ends up projecting the projector like onto his chest, and it's like him. I think that might have been the one where it might have been an older version of himself, and he's like
Killing himself.
Yeah, where it's just like he's there, and then you also see him on the camera, you know, and it's just an incredible, just practical effect that he's just doing with, again, this same projector. He shows the projector itself near the end of the movie, and I think that's important too. It's like, hey, like, it's almost like a flex. Like, hey, I'm doing all this with just this little projector I probably got from Amazon, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, he projects also at one point. He had a camera set up and recording like behind another camera, and it was like a live feed being projected on him. He had that faux cell phone light, and I didn't know until Inside. I guess I just didn't think about it, but I didn't know until watching Inside the first time that was like a thing. And I think that's just because I just wasn't exposed to it. But I was like, this is a genius invention. I want one. But like, these practical effects are probably my favorite thing about the production, because he had to do it all himself. And like in the outtakes, you'll see all the sample shots, and I really appreciate that as an artist and also as a person that's just really curious of how he did it. I love to see that, and you can see him testing out the projector, testing out all the different lights, seeing what shots work, and it's so cool. It does such an impressive job with it. And when it comes to the night stuff, I'm pretty sure part of that might have been like his creative juices working more or something, or maybe he sets up during the day and does it at night because it takes time to set up. But I'm pretty sure a lot of it is just because it's dark outside, and so he can do the full ambience of the lighting, because the lights are clearly like the MVP.
Yeah.
Forget Bo. It's the lights. It's the projector.
And like I said, one of my favorite things is every time we see him looking at his monitor, he has a little like a small HD monitor that he's always looking at his shots. And it reminds me of like me sitting in my own room or like us doing this right now where I'm looking at the shot. I see the objective opinion of in my head of like, okay, this needs to be shifted. This needs to be here. This light needs to be here. This would be better if I had this. And it's like that stuff just flows in my head. And I see the decisions that he's like, I could see him, moving the little Rubik's Cube in his head, trying to get the correct pattern that fits for him. But that being said, there's a lot of brute force creativity, meaning like he's just trying everything. And my production value for this movie, I will talk about a couple things, but the one thing is the song 30, after about midway through the movie, he turns 30 and he has a breakdown, but he makes a song called 30. And through that song, you can pretty much exemplify all the great things that he does have in this. That is production value. It's the editing, the sound design, fantastic. I'm pretty sure they won for it at the Emmys. But you were talking about it before, shooting long takes. For most of these, he's shooting long takes, and he understands that, like, I can do this within one take. I know I've got it down. He probably stopped throughout. He was like, okay, I didn't get it. Whatever. I'm not going to cut this, so let me just start recording again. And we don't see any of that. What we do see, what he does leave in is one more. And I'll get into the let's do one more later, but it's just beauty that he brings in because there's a lot of central blocking where it's like, it's not necessarily made for it, but it kind of translates to like a 9:16 TikTok, like online format almost. But it's like, if you're making anything, if you have a centrally framed item, it's always going to kind of lead you into that.
Yeah.
So if you're watching something 4:3, let's say Dune Part 2 just came out. We saw it in 4:3 IMAX. There's a lot of framing even within that is central framing. And if you think that it's done at the scale of Denis Villeneuve with a $90 million movie, Bo did this in his backyard. And it's just a testament to like the skills that you need do not necessarily mean that you just need them now. You need them at both scales. And if you don't have them here, you're not going to have them there.
Yeah.
So
you see that all the time when
value.
Marvel would go and hire these smaller directors to come make these, multi-$100 million movies, and they can do it at a small scale, but when they get to the big scale, they struggle with it. So I think that was a cool point you made there, that you have to be able to do it at both, and not everybody can.
I think Marvel nerfs their filmmakers because they're fundamentally giving them a toolbox that they don't necessarily know how to work with, because there's a certain workflow as to like how you shoot with VFX rather than without it. And plus, you might not be blocking with a smaller movie. You might not be blocking for like 6 people on screen or like 3 people in a scene. And there's a lot of stuff going on. They're not blocking those things because when you get to a certain budget, they might have producers or people like, oh yeah, like let's shoot all this stuff rather than the stuff you're confident at shooting that you know you need. So it takes away from their process. And people are like, oh, why does it take 6 months to shoot these movies? I wonder why. But that's neither here nor there because, I mean, people like Nolan, they know what they want. You get your 3 shots or 1 shot. And Clint Eastwood does 1 shot to his own detriment, but I'm not going to get into that. Cat.
Not that a lot of shots aren't a problem. Never mind. Yeah, I don't want to get into that. Yeah, please go.
I'm running away from it. I'm
Stop
running away from it because I know what I'm talking about, but I do not want to talk about it.
I was about to bring up
This
Fincher
is
and
gonna
then
be
debate
like a
you,
12-hour
so we're just going
podcast.
into it. Let's go. Yeah, please go. It already is. So let's go.
Kat, what is your production value for Inside?
Mine is not a specific song where I'm seeing it all. It's just throughout the whole thing. You get those long shots, and I know I keep referencing the outtakes, but it's just because it's essentially like behind the scenes content where you get to see that he did take a bunch of these sample shots. He did get to do a ton of one shots where he lines them all up on the screen, and then every time he cuts out of one, it drops. And then behind it is like either an almost perfect or the perfect shot, and I love it. Zach hit on the lights, and the way that he does the lighting is fantastic because he'll have the light set up so the background is a completely different color, but then he's lit up properly so it looks like the wall is painted blue or painted yellow, and that's not the case. I'm just so impressed with it. He clearly put a lot of thought into consideration into this whole film, and then even those more authentic type shots where he's laying on the floor, like on a pillow, being like, I hate everything. I'm depressed. This is a hard thing to do. My aunt is a set designer. I know those shots are not looking perfectly I Spy-esque flawlessly without him tweaking with it. He absolutely had to go around and like adjust the things in the shot to make sure it looked right, looked just orderly in a chaotic way. Like, fantastic. He just put so much thought and consideration into the film. Like, production across the board is fantastic. Even as he changes styles and the energy in each song and skit, it's just done really well. I love it.
You're talking about the lights in
Yep.
30. The reason why I brought that one up specifically is that he's literally got the little pack light in his hand, and then he's got 3 lights on a pedal.
Yep.
And he's got it
tapping on
memorized to the song. He's obviously had to do it like 15 times or 20
Poor guy.
times. Who knows how many times. But he did it so much, or he knows the planning. He's planned it to where this line, I'm going to do this one. I have to turn this one off, to turn this one on.
It
We're going to
takes
turn
this
all
long to
3 of them on at
change.
this time. So it's like there's an emotional beat to like why the lights are on.
Mm-hmm.
And even within that scene, like you said, there was 4 variations that he shows in the outtakes. And then you're like, oh, all these look good. But then
Yeah.
the one that he actually has is the one that's the best because that's the one he chose.
I think, especially with something like that, it just shows how much consideration was put into what he was doing. Because, I mean, that's a lot of choreography right there for him. He, like, the little pack light, the way he just rounds it around himself or, like, flashes it behind him. He has it up against his leg behind him. I love that. It seems so simple, but he's trying to time it properly, and that's, like you said, that's a fucking Rubik's Cube. That's rough. That's hard to do. So I
And I
applaud
will
him.
end. Oh yeah, and I will end production value on the thing that he's capturing it through all is a Lumix camera. We have just had our Tokyo Drift podcast episode up, and Marley was shooting his video for the podcast itself on a Lumix camera. Great camera if you're, doing this stuff, but it's like, this is a consumer grade camera that looks fantastic, and it's not what you're shooting on necessarily, but it's like he has this simple item that he's using. He's got other stuff with it, but that little base is capturing this. You don't have to have some like crazy $600,000, $500,000 camera to make cinema. Not now. And it's like people like Sean Baker, who made Tangerine Florida Project. He's done it himself too. He used iPhone 5S to shoot a movie. Soderbergh's done it. It's like it's a new thing that's been happening, and it's like a good artist is able to do that. If you hand, I'm not gonna name names, but if you hand that to a person who does not have that muscle, that bone within their brain, they're not gonna be able to do this. And it's the director in Bo, the cinematographer in Bo that really shines there. The YouTuber in Bo that shines there.
When
Right
can we
now.
get one of those cameras?
Right now. Order it. I dare
Tell
you.
me when.
Right now. I dare you. Swipe your credit card.
I can
baby.
order it, and I can order it anytime, but I don't need it right now.
Swipe that credit
If I
card, bro.
order it, it gets very real.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, now I gotta make something with this. Now the pressure's on. Then my anxiety
you
starts.
need to
Well-
order it so then you feel forced to do something creative. There you go.
Well, so in
What
high
are we
school,
doing right now?
in high school, we learned photography junior year. I was in a vocational high school. I did art and design. We were learning photography junior year. And one of the things that our teacher kept making sure we understood is it does not matter what type of tool you have. It is you and your set of skills that determines if the photo or the shot is art or just a picture.
So
She
you
said
say-
there's a difference between a photo and a picture. And a picture is
Not
what
to
your
toot-
mom takes when you're hanging out on Easter. A photo is something you have intention for.
So you're saying it's not about the tool, it's about how you use it.
100%.
Bars.
Take
A
what you
philosophy to
will
live
with
your life
that,
at.
Zachary.
That being said, me and Zach, we've known each other for 10 plus years, and we were
Is
in a
that insinuating
photography.
something?
We were in a photography club together in middle school, and I'd learned some stuff. Then I'd learned stuff from like my own father. I've learned a lot of stuff about photography, and I saw it very much in real life. Whereas like I used to shoot stuff for our yearbook in high school, and I'm like, oh yeah, I shot a bunch of this stuff. I'm not degrading anybody else's work, but I saw how my stuff looked and how their stuff looked, and it's just like I have this knowledge in my head, and I'm using it just almost subconsciously. And it really does matter what you're learning and how you're doing it. And it will affect whether you all have the same camera. Everyone's got something else that they can give. Why is it that it's always white men that are directing this stuff? And Zach,
Don't look at
even
me.
Bo says it,
Don't
right?
look at me.
It's like, why can't it be women? Why can't it be women of color? Why can't it be brown people? Why can't it be people from across the world? Because every time somebody else picks up a camera, you're going to get something compelling.
Yeah. Dang.
Zachary, you totally didn't remember you were in a photography club, did
No,
you?
I did. I was trying to think of like, where the hell are those pictures? I don't know where the hell the pictures are.
Okay, so dialogues. There's a lot of songs in this movie, but there's dialogue interspersed within that. I wonder what they call lyrics, but Zach, hit me with the dialogues that really hit you inside.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going back to Welcome to the Internet. So now I can display my thoughts. So, like we talked about so far, Bo likes to sandwich his songs with something tragic and real in the middle of these. So in Welcome to the Internet, there's a part, this is probably more near the end than in the middle. It slows down a little bit and he goes, "You know, it wasn't always like this. Not very long ago, just before your time, right before the towers fell circa 99, there were catalogs, travel blogs, a chat room or two. We set our sights and spent our nights waiting for you, the insatiable you. Mommy let you use her iPad, you were barely 2, and it did all the things we designed it to do." That's tough because there's a lot of things there. One, that nostalgia. So we're a little young for some of the early internet, but we were still there near the tail end of the early internet before social media started to take over as hard as it did. And we got to see that part of the internet, the part of the internet where there were forums. It wasn't all on freaking Reddit. There were separate forums that you could go to learn information or talk to people with the same interests as you. And I was on a few of them. You know, there were travel blogs. There were individual parts that you would just stumble upon. Stumble Upon was a great website for that. You would stumble upon these things where people put it on the internet, much like YouTube, because they just wanted to. They wanted to share with the world. Humans have this want to share their views, share what they think, share their vision with the world, just share nice things sometimes with the world. And that existed. And that was really when the internet was in its purest, best, non-commercial form, was when the internet was at its best. The internet we have today is not like that. Go search something in Google. You will not find something that is not corporate in there. Try to find me a forum that's active about a special interest you have. You'll probably be on Reddit. Go find a place that you can share photos with your family and friends. You're going to be on Facebook. You're going to be on Google Photos. You're not going to be making a blog. And if you do want to make a blog, guess what? There's a website that's probably made for that, that's been corporatized and has taken down all the small websites that would let you do that. The second part of this, though, not to monologue too long, they get to the part where mommy let you use your iPad, you were barely 2. That's the real tragedy there. And I'm not trying to
I ain't doing it with my kids, I'll tell you that. No way in hell.
God,
I'm not trying to make
rough.
it's hard because I don't want to make a judgment because I understand, like, I was raised with the TV. Like, it's not like,
Oh, yeah.
I watched the Lion King VCR tape until it fell off the freaking tracks. And, there's recent controversy around the Oscars because one of the Oscars winners, Ludwig, when he won, he mentioned how he thanked his mom that she didn't put him in front of a TV all day, that she let him, find, he didn't just consume, he was tasked to do things. Yeah, he was tasked to do things and he fell in love with, instruments and music. And, a lot of people took that the wrong way, took it offensive, which I thought was weird because what he was just trying to say is, like, I had a childhood where I was encouraged to create.
You had a childhood that you were afforded the opportunity and your parent had the time to help you with that.
That's why I'm not trying to be critical here.
My parents worked 70 hours a week. Like, what the hell were they supposed to do with me, right?
Yeah.
And they did as great as they could. It's not discounting someone's, quality as being a parent, but it's like there's certain things where it's like in the world that we live in now, it's like we have this very easy item to plop in front of our kids. Like, my dad brings it up all the time that my nephew, who's he's 18, he's about to be going off to college. And when he was a kid, he could literally bring up YouTube, and my parents didn't even know what the hell YouTube was. Like, when he was like practically a toddler.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're meaning.
Yeah. So I do want to ask, did you guys use much of the early internet? How was that for you?
I had a family computer. I mean, I don't want to get too heavy into it. When I was under 10, there was a house computer, the family computer. It was like an old one that my mom's ex-husband's family gave us to use. And I was only playing Webkins on that, and I was limited. But after 10, when my mom got divorced, I got a computer so then I could do homework, and that's when I started discovering YouTube. But outside of that, like, I didn't have any smart devices until a little later in middle school, which, I mean, that aged me a bit to be younger than a lot of people. But, I mean, my mom needed to make sure I had access to her, so she made sure I had a phone. And most of the phones at that time were smartphones at that point. But I didn't grow up with all that, like, being plugged in. And then my siblings, who are only 4 and 7 years younger than me, they have a habit of just being plugged in constantly. And I'm not going to judge anyone on that because I know it's difficult being a parent. Sometimes you need to be able to go and, like, shower or go to the bathroom, and your kid, who can be left alone in the room, needs something that can entertain them long enough for you to go and do your task. And one of the easiest things to do is just give them the iPad, give them the TV or the computer, and just let them sit down and be quiet and not cause any physical damage or harm. So I get it. But it's really unfortunate because, like, people aren't encouraged to create at a young age anymore. The reason I love art is because I was encouraged to create from a young age.
We met Bob Odenkirk recently at this same festival, Savannah Film Festival, where he and his daughter had created a book out of poems and stuff that he used to write with his kids at night. And his daughter is now actually a writer herself. And these things that you want to instill within your kids, whether it's morals, values, whether it's the way that we see the world, you do that from, like, when you're a kid. And yeah, Welcome to the Internet really hits this crazy base of all these sorts. It's a multifaceted song of, like, we have so many issues, and even just this one issue is really we all have our opinions about it. And I want to live in the perspective that I have, right? I practically feel like a boomer saying that I don't want my kids to have an iPad because I want them to breathe and live within this world till they have the chance and responsibility of getting the internet. Because I remember from my perspective that I got the internet, and it was like thing where it's like, I want to consume all this information. I'm curious. I still do it to this day. But it's like, you have to filter yourself. You realize that not everything in this world is for you. And you want to know if something happens in this world, but it's not necessarily beneficial to your mental health, that you need to know what's going on in some sort of other part of the world or something in somewhere where you live where these things are happening. It's not going to help you to some extent. So it's like, it's not that we aren't being empathetic humans. It's just we have to worry about ourselves. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's not to get too personal, but, like, that's one of the things I've been trying to figure out now as I get in my late 20s. I'll be 30 before I know it, just like Bo. And the thing is, I spent my whole life consuming. I enjoyed consuming. I even see consuming as, like, one of my passions. If you think about it, I love consuming films and then thinking about what I thought about it and giving it a rating on my letterbox. I really enjoy that, but I'm starting to get to the age now where I'm thinking, what can I also do? What can I create? Is it enough for me to want to live a life where I just consume, or there's still an urge in me to create things as part of the reason we do this podcast? It's something that we're creating. But even then, I want to feel like that my whole life wasn't just consuming. I have a strong urge to leave the world better than I found it. What way can I do that? And just consuming is not the way to do that. And when you lived a life so far where it all was consumption, it's hard to flip that switch and satisfy that urge. Maybe not everybody has that urge, but I do. And I'm interested to hear from what you guys say about that.
I mean, yeah, you see all my hobbies. All my hobbies are things where I create something. Took up crochet within the last year. Fucking loving it. I'm not fantastic, but I'm loving it. But, like, I mean, been obviously stated, I'm an artist. I love to create things, and it's so hard to find the motivation and inspiration to create in a world where you're consuming things that are feeling surface level a lot of the times. Not the films and not the books and all the lovely things like that, but, like, a lot of things on social media that we digest, even, like, some of the Reddit posts and everything in between, they feel almost surface level. So you're just taking things in. I mean, as a kid, I was thinking about it, and during recess, one of my friends got poison ivy because we would play in the grass and we would build little huts. We called them little fairy houses and stuff like that. We would take all the sticks and the leaves and grass, and the school was a little concerned with it for a while. And then the recess attendants were like, no, they're having a great time. They're sitting in one spot in the yard every day, building these little fairy huts. They didn't stop us until my friend got poison ivy. Play is something that we don't do as adults because it's seen as childish, but play is something you should do throughout your life.
No, that's a good point.
Like, you should expand your mind, mess around, and I don't just mean like poke fun at your partner, Zachary. I don't mean just like fool around in like a joking manner like that. Go and be childish again. Play. You don't need to play
That's
pretend,
what it
but like
should
go
be.
do a board
That
game
should be
kind
the
of deal.
norm.
Yeah, like I
But
miss
see,
pretending
for
I was a
me,
little fairy or
you're-
swimming in the
you're
pool
talking-
and being a mermaid.
You're
I
talking
loved
about
that.
like you're not able to be inspired. I live my life fully within inspiration. For me, at least, I was at least someone who, yeah, I watched movies, but I also was not in the internet too much. I had internet time at school. Maybe that was research based, but even then, I lived within my mind and lived within other people's worlds that I saw. But even to this day, I am always inspired. I always find the beauty within moments. I remember hearing Chad Stahelski talking about how he was talking to like a waiter at some place around the world, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this about this, this cool human being, and I'm gonna put that in a movie because that's something great that should be in a movie. But it's like the interactions that I have in the world, the things that I see in the world, the life that I live, will inherently inform what I need to create and my perspectives about this world. So it's like, I don't find it difficult. I might find difficulty in format. That's about it. And even then you can work at it. I don't know about y'all, but T-Pain said it right. T-Pain actually, he has a clip online. He's like, if you're not satisfied with what you have during the day, you have time at night, you can find time, whether, no matter how hard it is, to try to do something different and try to move your own personal dial further to a place where you're happy with what your life is. And I think this is like, Inside is a very much a meditation on like what Bo sees as a problem, but he's also trying to figure out what makes him happy.
Yeah.
So, because the problem is, for my dialogues, I put apathy is a tragedy and boredom is a crime. Why is that? People are in this world, they do not have enough time, or they're not given a place where they can be creative, or they can have some sort of outlet or this purpose. You either need to feel belonging to something, and you need a task. You need some sort of vision of like, I need to do this and this will help me. And that could be any sort of thing. It could be artistic, it could be religious, it could be social, it could be anything across the board. And I can just speak from my personal perspective about that. And I said it already, my whole Batman bit with apathy is that apathy is a tragedy, because the moment you stop to care, the moment you let this world win with the pessimism, is when you become the most dull person. And it's like, people will make fun of you for like, oh, you got a film podcast? Oh, you make songs? You are an artist? Like, what are you doing? Like, man, get to work. You ain't gonna do anything with this. No, actually, I'm a more interesting. These people are compelling because they do that. I never ask people what they do for work. I ask them, what are you interested in? Because work is work. Everybody's work is going to be like that. Maybe some people are blessed enough to be working in a place where they are doing creative stuff with their vision, Like, I could be doing this tonight, and tomorrow I'm building something. Tomorrow I'm trying to use that creative bone that I have in my brain, because we all need it. Kat, dialogues. You have any?
Yeah, I have a couple notes. So throughout this film, clearly there's some beautiful authenticity in those little video diary vlog energy type vibe shots. I love that because that's what grounds the viewer and the audience throughout everything. Like, these are fun songs, they're meant to be funny, and the skits are all meant to like clearly have a message, but in such a playful tone that someone that might have a take on the message might just kind of glance over it and still consume it. But these little video diary bits are centering and saying, hey, like, yeah, the internet is chaos, but also like that chaos feeds into who I am as a person, and it centers back. But outside of that, which I wrote down that these could be planned or purely authentic off the cuff. Maybe it's something where it starts off authentic, and then if he likes what he's saying, he maybe re-record it. Because that's what I do when I'm doing my little monologues and shit. I'm re-recording them half the time because I'm an external processor. I'll speak my thoughts into
What
the
are you,
world.
some sort of Bo Burnham?
I am, I guess. Listen, it's that Massachusetts crap, that masshole energy. But like, I'm an external processor, so if I'm sharing something on my little private little video vlog shit, I'm sharing it, comprehending what I'm saying, and then I'm repurposing it and rephrasing it. And it just, I don't know if that's what he's doing. I'm sure there's a balance. It's a combination, of course, but I'm very intrigued to learn about that. But like Zach said, sometimes revealing behind the curtain kind of ruins the magic. But if you want some quotes, I got FaceTime with my mom. First off, fucking hilarious. Because during COVID, what do we all have to do? We had to go and Zoom and FaceTime our parents and shit. Like, I didn't see my family for a year and a half.
Vikash was FaceTiming his mom to her face because he was stuck at home.
I'm so happy I was not living with my mother. I would have killed myself. I love you, Mom, but I would have died. It says...
And Kat does not mean that we're going to put up the same disclaimer that Bo puts.
I'm not actually suicidal.
It is something that I relate to.
It was an emphasis.
To Bo very much. Bo says this a lot in this. He says at least 3 times. He's like, oh, like I'm going to kill myself. And I relate to him with the way he says that is that we value our life, but it's like, I don't want to exist within this moment because there's this sort of fear or something just like this negative emotion that I don't want to deal with. That's what he's talking about. It's like we should value our lives and we should not think that we should not be on this earth. That's all I'm saying. Back to Kat.
No, I'm just saying I'm glad you landed that plane. I didn't know where you were going with that.
I was really concerned for a second.
I know where I'm going. I've got my inner narrative good. Okay, guys.
We don't know where it's going.
I thought that was a Boeing 757 Max for a minute, man. Holy crap.
Okay, so FaceTime with my mom. I'm a FaceTime with my mom tonight. She'll hold her iPhone 5 no further than 6 inches from her face. And Zachary, what did we do when we video called my mom the other day? What happened? She had the phone right up in her face because we called her so then I could open we opened an early anniversary gift because my mom buys us gifts. Love language, buying gifts. But what did she video calls us and right up in her face every time without any kind of like... There's no chance of ever getting anything further than, like, just the box that is head. It's hilarious.
The portrait, that's it.
The portrait, yeah. Jesus. It's just so funny. And that was just a perfect, like, she had her hair wet, and I said, oh, did you just get out of the shower? She's like, oh my God, how'd you know? It's like, your hair's wet, Mom. It's like, I go to the grocery store, and someone's like, did you just shower? I'm like, don't call it out, man. Like, I know I'm at the grocery store with wet hair. I also have... From the song, That Is How the World Works, I got, don't you know, the world is built on blood and genocide and exploitation. The global network of capital essentially functions to separate the worker from the means of production. I just love calling out, like, the world and capitalism.
Do y'all understand what he means by that last line, though?
Go ahead and go into it for the audience.
The last line of like separate the worker from the product or whatever, that is almost word for word Karl Marx. Yeah. We're not going to get into it on the pod, but
I don't want to get into stuff.
Let me context it. So Sacco, he has Sacco saying it, so he's doing 2 things. One, Sacco is calling out some issues with the world, but also Sacco is being that internet commentator that you see just saying like the most, Red Scare type dialogue on the internet to anybody who will listen. So it does a little bit of both. Yeah, I don't know if it could be his views, it could not, I don't know, but it's funny. Yeah.
Well,
when this man rips off Sacco, one of the most horrifying things I've seen in my life.
Oh yeah, he murdered the sock.
It's like killing Kermit the Frog, man.
He literally killed him. I didn't want to get into
to Sacco too, but they didn't put it out.
I didn't want to get into That Is How the World Works, but since we're talking about do like 2 seconds, generally it just says things are really complicated, and I really like that it's in a kids show dynamic because we try to teach kids things and we try to teach it in a very lighthearted and simple way, but that is not reality. Saying like history is this black and white thing, and it is not. It is a mess, and to teach things accurately, it's going to be complicated, and that is how the world works. And I just really like the whole song, so I had to pull a quote from it, and that was like probably the easiest one just to take out of context.
Let me hit one more that I did forget.
Okay.
And
go for it.
It's in the Bo Burnham fashion that the line is, let's do one more, because I forgot it too. But it's a thing that he brings up multiple times within this, and he shows within himself a characteristic that he has as an artist is that you just saw this man land it. This is the one that got into the movie.
Yeah.
But he's like, I still have to do one more. Me and Zach were talking this morning about the film, and there's this innate need that I see within myself. I think that a lot of people should have within themselves is this instilled version of like we should try to improve what we're doing. And that's not to say like, oh, what I did wasn't bad and you should look at it and judge yourself negatively for it, but we should always try to move forward in a positive way to improve. And I felt like that's what Bo was trying to do. He was in the sauce trying to like find perfection. He's trying to find something special, I think, and not perfection.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the line every time he says, let's do one more. That one hits the heart.
Oh no, it's truly honest, and I like that he kept that in because he could have just clipped it, but keeping it in again kind of brings us back to the reality of what he's doing. He's creating this really honestly intricate project, and it takes a lot of shots to make. And when you're in the zone, you might not feel like it's the right shot, or even if you do, you're like, let's do one more just to make sure. And also, are you sure that's a little bit of a perfectionist
that
side?
feels that's
Are
me.
You sure
I feel it in my bones. Alrighty, on to the Layla. The best needle drop or use of score in this movie. A movie full of songs. So, Zach, what is your Layla for this movie? Hard choice when you have 20 songs.
Yeah, really, for a movie like this, and we've been doing a lot of musical or musical adjacent movies lately, but for a movie like this, the Layla is almost like pick your favorite song. It's meant to be a needle drop category, but this is a movie of songs, so I'm going to pick my favorite song, and I'm going to monologue a little bit, so apologies to you guys in the audience, but this is something I've been thinking about for a while, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about here, but I decided I will. So, the song I picked for the Layla is That Funny Feeling. So, this song is a cacophony of just contextless news headlines and random stuff you would find on the internet. It gets pretty dark, too, talking about, like, mass shootings. It mentions derealization. But that's why it's my favorite song, and I think it's the key to the movie. That funny feeling that Bo talks about, that's the derealization some of us were feeling during COVID when all we had was an overabundance of social media. We never meant to take in so much information like this. I struggled a lot during COVID with that funny feeling too. There's a quote from a game I really admire called Disco Elysium that really stuck with me when I was in the depths of 2020. It goes, "The mask of humanity fall from Capitol. It has to take it off to kill everyone, everything you love, all the hope and tenderness in the world. It has to take it off just for a second to do the deed. These large entities, corporations, governments, the groups responsible for our current society, they made decisions in order to stay in business and stay in control that were damaging to the regular person. Millions of people were laid off in the most unsure world situation in a century. There were riots in the street over racial discrimination. The lowest paid and most vulnerable workers were identified as essential and forced back into an unsafe workplace. If you worked at McDonald's, you were an essential employee. Have you ever thought about how backwards that is? Bo's funny feeling is that he saw all this and he wasn't sure how to handle it anymore, which is why he made this film, I think anyway.
It's a thing where it's like you get both. You see the worst. I think anytime something bad happens, you see the best in people and you see the worst in people. And this time period was maybe leaning one way more than the other. And I don't think we should discount the goodness that people have, but I think the problem is that people were using it and abusing it to get people to do things that they're going to do either way. But you're putting pressure on people who don't need to have that pressure, and it's hurting them in ways that we don't even know what the effect might be, or the effect might have gone on. I know people who are nurses that got out of the profession because they're like, I can't do this. The system, we see that the system that we're living within is not tenable. It is not respectful. It is not something that's gonna give me the thing I need in life, whatever it may be. But it puts you into perspective, and that funny feeling is what's putting you into perspective, either in a sad way or it is a dour realization with derealization.
Yeah. No, I had friends who had to legitimately in the first weeks of COVID quit their job because they had conditions where COVID would likely kill them, at least at that time. And they had to quit their job and be unemployed because their job was forcing them back as someone in the medical field. And I also know people too who were perfectly great at their job and were let go because the business decided that they needed to show stakeholders that they were making decisions to cut costs in uncertain times, and they were let go of their job and were forced with tons of people at the same time to try to find another job when no one was hiring in an uncertain world, and had to figure out how to feed their family when, oh, by the way, it was hard to even go find food at the supermarket because if you go there, you might get COVID and die, or there's no food there anyways. it's something that I haven't really put into words since it all happened, but seeing this song the first time and every time I see it since, I'm just like, yeah, I had that funny feeling and I couldn't really describe it. But Bo really talks about it here in a roundabout way by just listing all these things that give him that funny feeling, this derealization that the world that we're in is, at least the COVID world we're in, is that a lot of it was bullshit. We were doing a lot of things, so then the businesses kept making money, essentially. And yeah, that'll cause you to have that funny feeling.
Yeah, it almost felt like nothing mattered for a while. And, everything was fucked up. Everything was a distraction. So he says in the first verse, stunning 8K resolution meditation app. In honor of the revolution, it's half off at Gap. Deadpool's self-awareness, loving parents, harmless fun. The backlash to the backlash, the thing that's just begun. Like, that's the beginning of the song. And you're listing off all these things that are, like, pretty harmless, right? Or seems harmless. And then it scrolls into, like, how just, like, live action Lion King. Like, this is also my Layla.
Like that first line.
This song
that first line is
this song just kind of, the first line just sets the tone of just meditation app alone. He circles back to the concept of like a meditation app throughout the film, and everyone's gotten a meditation app at some point. I've got like 3 meditation manifestation apps, and I only use the ones that pop up on my phone to give me little positive manifestation, because I can't think of one for myself on a daily basis. But like, we're trying to find these little things that can help us feel better in the world, at least during the COVID time. And unfortunately, like, it was all just a distraction and to sugarcoat and cover up the things that were hard and painful. And that funny feeling was just a thing that you had for at least a year. Like, it was just a matter of how intense it was, not if it was even there. I felt that way for like 2 years. It was hard.
I will say that first line is for like film people, because it's 8K resolution.
I know.
And anybody who knows, nothing is in 8K. Your eyes can't even perceive 8K. But his whole point is that there's this exuberance of outwardness, or like some sort of like superficialness that's, been taking place. And I see it as sedation. Yeah, you're trying to be better, but it's all things that you're trying to do to like distract from what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And meditation's not bad, but it's like the way in which you're trying to do it is a distraction.
Yeah, the way that you're doing it, you're like ticking the box. You're just trying to go in through the motions to see if it'll fix the problem when intention is needed for that. But what I really like about this song is that the point is driven home by the fact that he has the projector set up to show a forest in the background, a faux forest that he is creating in this whole like fucked up situation. It just kind of like drives it home. He even starts the song by showing the flickering light to make it look like he's got a fire. Like, he's showing transparently that it is not authentic whatsoever. And then he's going into
100%
how this inauthenticity is messing with everybody.
Well, also, too, it's kind of like the phrase, you can't see the forest for the trees. Everybody's so focused on this meaningless bullshit that he says in the song that everybody's missing the forest for the trees. He literally has the forest behind him.
Yep.
I thought it was also a take about like Taylor Swift, that like Folklore had just come out. But it's not like discounting Taylor Swift. It's
Shut the fuck up.
It's sedation.
Folklore's fantastic. That is another masterpiece from COVID. I will fight you. I will drive to your house and fight you.
I'm not saying Folklore is bad. I'm just saying that
I know.
The emulation of what he was doing felt like that to me as Swiftie outsider. I'm a Swiftie adjacent, put it that way. My Layla was All Eyes on Me. I've already said all my thoughts about it. It's just my favorite song because it's like, it's got all the stuff and it's very dramatic and all that. I have nothing else to say about it. That's my Layla. Actually, I just remembered we said I was going to do Jeffrey Bezos, but we've been talking about a lot of negative stuff. I don't want to keep going on that.
I don't want to get into that. Okay. Here, I can make it positive.
Jeffrey Bezos has this, it's the hardest beat. It is the one that got put on TikTok and everyone's hearing it. I will randomly be on my phone or just like randomly like just living life. I'll be Jeffrey Bezos. But it's like,
motherfucker got so much money out of me.
He did it.
He gave this demon such a life because it's like his vision is like, hey, I'm going to make you think about why this world is so messed up and how overconsumption and all these problems are, we have billionaires for some reason. And I'm not going to get into all that, but it's like he's messing with you with the hardest beat that he put on this entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can make it positive if you want.
it's interesting.
So the song
Go
Goodbye
ahead
at
if you
the
can
end.
thread the needle.
Yeah, the song Goodbye at the end has that very
Goodbye.
classic, like, musical performance type of wrap everything up. He pulls a line from basically every song. He references everything and he sends his message, and it ends with him finally leaving, and he's outside of the room, that little guest house, and spotlight on him, audience claps, chef's kiss. Loved it. There you go. That was positive.
But I think the best part about that is what he's saying is like, next time I'll watch you.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, and then he says even more so after that, if anything ever happens, if I'm, broken, irrelevant, call me up and tell me a joke. It's like, even if I'm not here, just be reminded that you should still try to do what I'm doing here, trying to, no matter what's going on in your head, trying to forge something into creation, you should do that. But you should also remember that I'm watching what you're doing. And he almost puts the creative breadth of what he's doing onto us. He's pushing it onto us. It's like, you just watched what I did. I set the bar. Now go beat it.
He wants to inspire you.
The fire in me, you heard me what I said at the end of Ironclaw. It's very much the same vibe as like, I got to get into it. I got to go do this, because that's what's the most inspirational thing is like, yeah, of course you can take inspiration from this, but it's like when people speak to you like that, whether it's Kendrick Lamar on The Heart Part 5, when people really get into what they want to say to people and say it honestly, that hits. And that, Layla, the Goodbye. That's fantastic. Thank you. Threaded the needle.
There you go.
Hey, you want to move to the next one?
Y'all know who should have been in this movie? Come on. Let's recast the only role that exists in this movie besides the projector, besides the camera, besides the
Sacco.
besides the
Sacco.
chair, besides Sacco, besides his underwear, besides the lack of his underwear, besides the popcorn that he makes in the outtakes. Besides all that, who would recast Zach as Bo Burnham?
Yeah, so this is really funny. So I was thinking about who? We can't recast anybody. But like, who else could do something like this? So I thought about a lot of people. Two I did not pick, but I do want to call out, as I did think of Zach Braff at one point. I thought of Ben Stiller too. Maybe a younger Ben Stiller could have done something like this. But then I was like, oh, there is someone alive who could actually do this and has actually done this already, if you don't know. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, famously from Fleabag. She directed and starred in a one-woman play that later became Fleabag. So in a way, she's done this already. And
if you want to see it,
Yeah.
I think it's available through the BBC. It's actually fantastic. I didn't even think about it, but yeah, it is fantastic.
I love her.
Yeah, so I was like, she's actually the one she's got the humor. She can do the self-referential humor. I don't know if she can sing and all that stuff. That doesn't matter. But she's probably the one person who could actually do something like this. I don't have a lot of other substance behind it, so there you go.
I would like to claim my credit for the rebranding of this situation. I'm the one that said, let's not drop this category. Zach said, hey, I think we're not going to do it. I'm like, why would we not do it? Why not just say who
Do you
else
want
could
like a
pull
gold
this
star?
off?
Like,
Yeah,
what,
give me
what
my
do you want from this?
My gold stars are over there, bitch. I bought gold star stickers.
See, Zach,
Can't
see
believe
this
it.
gold star behavior? It's because of the man. You know
Hex
what
the
I'm talking about.
patriarchy.
With School of Rock.
Cat's the man.
Yeah. I just
Oh,
wanted
so
I just
not-
wanted
I gotta
credit
call
for
you
the thing
stupid
that
ass?
I gave idea to. Sorry.
Oh, congrats. You got the credit. What else do you want now?
I'm supposed to go third with this. I'm not supposed to go
Oh,
second.
okay. Well, Vikash, who would you pick?
Mine is a YouTuber. It's Casey Neistat. Just from a filmic standpoint, he has some of the most confident work I've ever seen. And he very much is a guy who just sits there and talks to the camera. And he does the filmmaker stuff bit. He doesn't sing, but he always has perspectives and he knows how to put it into words. And he makes it compelling, makes it relatable. So if he had ever done a film like this or had to resolve his feelings within something, he would be fantastic for this. I don't know if y'all watch him. He did 500 plus days of like vlogging his own life. So I've seen his life. But then what happened because of him is that he is the reason the entire like vlogging, like capturing yourself as a person has changed, because he's the template for it. And it's been 9 years and people are still ripping this man off because he was that good at what he did.
No, good for
and
him.
He's just like a super creative individual. and he has an older brother that he learned everything from, who recently got a YouTube channel. But you see where it's like, oh, the crazy inner workings of this creative, where he does it himself and he shows you how he's writing stuff or creating a shot. He does all that himself too. But it's like, oh, he learned this from his brother, who till very recently was just kind of not online as much as he should have been. So it's interesting. Oh, he got online because of COVID, I think, actually. So interesting how these things work.
Yeah, I know
Cat.
he's done actually some films, but they've been more, I think, documentaries. But he did have one in 2022 perform at South by Southwest. So he has done some film work. So that's cool.
He has films. He had a HBO series with his brother Van Neistat that I'm talking about. His other brother's a stunt double, but even then, these guys are just intensely creative individuals. So what he's done, he's made a career out of, is he's also had times where Nike will come to him, other people will come to him, and then he goes and makes commercials with them. But it's just him getting to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
So it's compelling.
Okay.
I recommend that y'all just go watch something on his YouTube channel. You'll be like, oh yeah, this guy's got good work. But Kat, that being said, who's your Bo Burnham?
I was brainstorming.
Besides Bo Burnham.
So I went and I created a big list. It's not like everyone's perfect. Everyone's very loose on it. Probably my best option is Charlie Day. He could totally hold the attention. He's got the humor.
He can sing.
He's got some talent, man. Charlie Day. Okay, would you like to hear all my others?
He just directed his own movie called This Fool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we got Charlie Day. This is in no particular order. I'm going in an order that y'all would prefer versus the one that my brain flowed with. So Charlie Day, Maya Rudolph, Jack Black. I told you they're not great. Tim Robinson from I Think You Should Leave. There's Bill Hader, Seth Rogen. John Wilson does the docs, but he's never on camera. Otherwise, I would say he could totally do it. Nathan Fielder, but I feel like he needs other
What are you
people.
doing? None of these people. What, Nathan Fielder?
Hold on.
What?
Nathan, I put the issue with half of these people. Most of them is you need a team or you need other people to interact with you, and that's the big hang up.
Yeah.
Aubrey Plaza, but you told me Aubrey wouldn't work because of her style.
I was just thinking it needs to be someone who has a background.
I don't
in
have
directing.
I don't know enough people like that, Zachary. Yeah, put your hands up. I made a list.
IMDb.
I'm not gonna put
Google.
people that I'm not familiar with though.
You made a good one on there. I think Bill Hader actually could conjure
Bill
something
Hader
up.
could
I
do
think
it. He was
has
one of the
right
first few I put
creativity.
on.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one.
Bill would make something horrifying.
No,
Okay.
no,
Well,
yeah. I don't think any of
this
them are
category-
actually great, honestly. I couldn't brainstorm anybody.
No, this category was really difficult for this one, so I think we got actually a good amount of juice out of it, but we should probably move on.
Soapbox, a new segment that we have on the podcast where if you have a soapbox take, you want to get up and yell it to the world. What is that take, Zach? What do you have any thoughts about inside? Zach.
Okay, my soapbox. You know what? It's almost a shame we replaced hot take with this because this is also a great hot take, but neither here nor there. So my soapbox is this, to me, is the Social Network of the content era. The Social Network, like the movie. So like the David Fincher film set up in the 2010s for what social media was becoming, Inside has perfectly summed up the current decade's compulsion towards creating and consuming content. You can see it in the press releases now. Movies are content, TV shows are content, funny tweets are content, YouTube videos are content, TikTok reels are content. The difference doesn't matter to people anymore. They just want something to consume. They don't care about where the art fits in society and what the meaning or intention is behind it. They just want content, and businesses just want to sell you content. That's my take.
Baby, I made you some content. At the beginning of the thing.
Yeah.
Daddy
At the beginning of this, he literally says,
I literally wrote in my notes and
wide.
circled it. I was like, content. I just kept writing the word content when I was watching this because it was like, yes, he is summing up what our current media landscape is. And it's just making a podcast. We're doing this right now.
Podcasts are
Just
content, yeah.
Content. It's all content. It doesn't matter anymore. It's just content.
But look, I made you some content. Daddy made you your favorite open wide.
So that's my soapbox.
It's just such a good line. You're not wrong. Oh, shit.
You're about to get lit on fire. When I post this is going on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And
Okay.
this man just said, this is the social network, and
Let
I'm
me-
inclined
let
to
me-
agree with it. And all y'all social network people, I don't want to hear it.
He's so
we
happy.
rocking to this. So don't tell me nothing. We rocking with this.
We rocking
this
with
is
it.
our social networks.
Okay, wait. I got one more for them.
Go ahead.
This is better than The Social Network. Okay, we're done.
That's not that hard.
Sorkin, come get me.
It's
David
not
Fincher,
hard for
come get
us.
me.
That's not
But
hard.
it's
Come get
hard
me.
for Twitter. If you were to poll most people on Letterboxd, a lot of them would say Social Network's the best movie of the 2010s. I'm serious about that.
That's disgusting.
Us three here have always been low on it. Like, for real. We've
Yeah.
always been low on it.
It's not
most
bad.
people, they consider that their favorite of the 2010s. That's never been my thing. I never understood it. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie, personally. Other people are free to have a different opinion, but that's my opinion.
Pat texted me Tuesday. He was like, Social Network freed up on the pod if either one of y'all want to do it. And I'm like, this literally, that was me. I said it, Jeff. I was like, it ain't me. It ain't me. We ain't gonna talk about it. It ain't me. I ain't doing it.
Text him and be like, but when he does Jobs, Steve Jobs, the Danny Boyle one, let me know. Let me know when you want to do that.
Nah, that's gonna be y'all. I'm gonna tell him about it. So my soapbox take for this movie has to do with the song right before he says, "How are you feeling?" Which is, he's sitting there with the strew of electronic items next to his head. He's on the floor laying down with a pillow, and he's talking about social media, lamenting essentially the apps and all this stuff that we're intaking. And he's like, oh, like, why are you making this the thing that we're in, and making like people in like Southern California are making money off of this? And I was thinking about how inherently cinema is a thing where people are making money off of it too. But my take beyond that is like, it's very much the paradox of Bo Burnham. It's the paradox of humans, that we want this connection, and as artists we want to show our perspectives, but it's like there's this give and take within what we're doing. How many times can this be a pure connection?
Mm-hmm.
And he's literally showing his thing on Netflix, right? Like he sold it to Netflix for like a few $1 million, and that's a transaction for his art. So I feel like there's this paradox that exists, and he's kind of calling it out there.
Yeah.
Because as artists, we're conveying our perspectives to the world in the most palatable way possible that we have. And that means us sitting here. We've been sitting here for 2 hours talking about Bo Burnham's inside. Whether it's us, whether it's Brad Bird trying to push his Randianism in Tomorrowland, whether it's Ava DuVernay with Origin trying to do her thing and trying to give us a perspective on how to live our lives or something. Like there's like, it could be anything. It could be a YouTuber, it could be a podcast, whatever it is. We're trying to convey perspectives. It could be a visual piece, a painting. Everything is, all art is trying to give a perspective, give some sort of narrative. And at least for me, I like a lot of narrative art. But at the end of the day, are you worried about views? Are you worried about engagement? It's like, what is the gratification that you're looking for?
What point of view is Ant-Man Quantumania trying to give people?
That's the problem, right?
Right? No, that's true. Art without a viewpoint.
You want something that is like deeply emotionally relevant. And it's like, okay, the songs that Bo Burnham was making on YouTube, are those deeply emotionally relevant? I don't think they are to me. But like if I watch Inside, or if I watch his movie 8th Grade, I feel like the level of work he's done with both of those is a very confident piece about a certain feeling that he is giving relation for himself to, whether it's himself in Inside or the young woman that's in middle school, 8th grade, therefore the name of the movie.
I just love that you say we've been here for 2 hours talking about it. It's been 2 hours and 16 minutes, and honey, we could have watched this whole fucking movie again.
That's true. That means it's good if we're talking longer than what the movie is.
This isn't a bad thing at all. It's wonderful that it sparks discussion like this. And I mean, clearly there's messages, there's talent, there's things to talk about with it if we're making an episode on it.
Bo understands that now more than ever that we use all these devices to try to tell stories that we want to share, perspectives we want to share. But I think he's also trying to limit us as to like, how much should we exist on this, and how much do we actually need to share? Are we actually saying something that matters, that needs to be shared to people? Which obviously goes into his little stand-up bit of like, can you shut up?
Can anyone just shut the fuck up about anything ever?
Kat, what is your soapbox?
So this is, as I've said before, the most creative film I think I've ever had the pleasure to watch. And like the creativity and passion found in this film is something I haven't seen in pretty much anything ever. And Zach and I bond over this movie. Like, we talked about it. Phantom Thread is like our couple movie. But other than that, like, this is a close second. Like, we bond with this movie.
Yeah.
We both love it. I mean, like I said, we watch it at least once a year. You just throw it on. It's a quick hour and a half. Then you just, might as well throw on the outtakes while you're at it. But I love it. And it's also such an important film because, I mean, we've been talking for almost 2.5 hours now, and there's clearly messages among the fun and funny and entertaining content. It inspires people to make art, have discussions, acknowledge things. Even if it's in a playful light, you're acknowledging struggles and issues. And it just shows that you can continue to be creative and artistic even after you enter a professional industry and start having to be part of a more traditional box. Because film, you might be able to have more freedom and more like a wider range for what kind of creation you can make. But the things that make something good and bad are still within a box, I feel like. So having the opportunity to think outside of it and make something that you choose and that is passionate to you, I applaud it. And Bo's never going to hear it, but if he did, I want to thank him for making it because I love this movie.
You said this is the most creative film you've ever seen?
Probably. I don't want to say this is the most awesome and impressive because you can probably come back and say, okay, well, look at all these like critically acclaimed films. I mean, like, creative in the sense of look at all these really specific niche but also like a vast range of skits and shots and music. And I mean, we talked about the different types of lighting he used, and he did it all on his own. Like, a team can make an incredible piece, but this is an independent thing. This is pretty much solo.
You're
aside
impressed.
from a couple things.
You're impressed about the ratio of creativity to the amount of people who worked on this, which is one person. That's what you're saying. This is one of the most creative
you
things
saying
you've ever seen in film, and it's only one person who did it. That's why you're so impressed.
Yeah.
So is it
I mean, like,
inspired
if
or despite?
I'm impressed by it, but I mean, even if he had a team, I still would probably feel really impressed. But you don't usually get the amount of freedom when choosing the type of things you're putting together and creating. And you don't get as much say when you have a team. You might get really good input, but he got to make all the decisions what he wanted. And then when he did the final cut, he did have to accommodate to a point, but then he assembled the outtakes because he wanted to. It was his passion project. And like, I love that.
I'm gonna mansplain this real quick to you. I'm gonna do what Zach usually does to you when he tries to get you to thread the needle. Is that this is the most creatively like forward. This is the more like we were talking about the auteur theory. Like, this is the most creative vision like forward you've seen.
Yeah.
Because I don't think this is good in spite of it being one person. I think it's that. I think if you have more people with you and you're working together with great creatives who are on the same page as you, you will create something together that is better than what you would have done yourself. And whether it's the thing that you saw in your head or not, is probably better than what you could have done with your own two hands. So I think there's a very fine line there.
Yeah.
No.
And it's like, if I understand if this is the most creative movie you've seen, then I'd say, I wouldn't say to kick rocks, I'd say go watch more movies. Because I feel like whether you're watching something that's taking place today or like, in the 1940s, everything in between, you have some incredibly creative people with some creative decisions that every time I watch a movie, I'm like, oh, that's sure as hell a decision to make right there.
Well, yeah, but I mean creative in like an artistic sense. Like, when I think of creativity as an artist, like, the whole process is part of the creativity. Like, it's not just the final painting, it's the process of painting it. You might paint a whole portrait beforehand and then completely cover it up. Like, I love that. I love when I watch artists create something and then basically put a whole other thing on top of it, because it is just showing that the process is what matters in that moment. But that's a whole other conversation.
I have one hell of a recommendation companion movie for Cat. I don't know if you've thought about this, but it's a genius one.
What's that?
And I'm gonna tell you when we get to companion movies.
We're not there yet.
I'm not gonna bust it right now.
Okay.
Bust it out.
We're not there. Let's move to.
I'm gonna bust it down. I'm gonna bust it down for the Oscars.
Yeah, move to the Oscars.
This is
not that I got nominated.
This is not. not that this is an Oscar movie because technically it went to Netflix and this is seen as a comedy special and we're put into the little box of what our humanity provides for good art. That's why we had a conversation as to what this is. And this was a TV comedy special because that's what Bo Burnham is seen as. It's like Drake is not a rapper per se. He makes a lot of pop music, but they want to put you in a box. Everything in this world is about putting you in a box. And it's like, hey, you better stay in that box. If you do something different, we're not going to like you anymore. Stay in this box. And that feels like a Bo Burnham bit right there.
I like to ask what's in the box.
What's in the box? It's just, it's that dude's soul. That's what it was in Pulp Fiction, wasn't it?
Yes.
But or it could be Gwyneth Paltrow's head. But Critic Choice Awards, we got Best of Bo Burnham. He got the Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Variety, Talk, News / Sports Specials. He got a nomination for that, and that's from the DGA. That sounds so weird.
Hey, Directors Guild.
The Eddie Awards. That's the Editors Guild. He won for Best Edited Variety Talk Show, Sketch Show, or Special. He won an editing award.
Fantastic.
Yeah, awesome.
It's deserved.
I'm glad he won something.
The Grammys. He didn't get Best Music Film somehow, but he did get Best
Who got it?
Song Written.
Who? What?
What was the song?
The best music film that won. This is for the Grammys. Very political or apolitical, or they don't know what they're doing in the first place. But the Grammys, Bo Burnham was nominated. David Byrne's American Utopia, Spike Lee directed. Billie Eilish for Happier Than Ever. And
so
then
it's like
Jimi
going against
Hendrix.
music videos.
And the thing that won was Questlove's movie, The Summer of Soul. It was like a documentary film. So it's like you're like jam packing, you're compacting all these like different creative endeavors into one little box. Like I said, they're trying to push you into a box.
Yeah.
And Summer of Soul won. It's fantastic. That's something that they're going to show in schools. It's that great. They should show this in schools too, honestly. But Inside should be in schools. But the song that they won for this is All Eyes on Me, which
Really
makes sense.
No, that's probably the most songy song. It's good. Yeah.
Why do you think I like it?
Yeah.
The 12-year-old in me loves it.
No, I don't blame him.
Listen to this.
It kind of...
Zach, do you know where the Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it shows you that in another life, if Bo just wanted to be a professional singer-songwriter, like he could just do that and he would be good at it. That's not what he wants to do. But you can just, like you said, he won an award for a song in his movie. He could be a pretty good just guy who just puts out albums.
And he was going to go to NYU like Tish, but he pursued all this instead because he had already gotten heat from YouTube.
Yeah.
I was going to say, do you know the Peabody Awards?
Yeah.
They come from UGA because the Grady School gives out the Peabody.
Yeah.
So the Peabody was won by our man Bo Burnham
nice.
for 2022.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder, did they give those out like at their graduation, or is that like a separate thing? I wonder.
No. That's not a thing like that. But they have, there's so many different projects that win it. And you could, like, Array won, Ava DuVernay's company won, I May Destroy You. There's all sorts of different, like, Ted Lasso's kind of in there. There's some other stuff that's across the board. They have a lot of honorees and then other people that are winning. So, like, Fresh Air, like NPR, they won. Bo Burnham. So the year that Bo Burnham Inside got there, it was that Dope Sick, which was a good piece from Danny Strong. Michael Keaton was in it. It's about like the whole drugs, the oxycodone thing. Hacks was in there. Reservoir Dogs, Underground Railroad from Barry Jenkins. That's the same year. That's all honored under the same banner by the Peabodys. But so you see the level of work that's like, it's pushing the inching of like our society forward in some way. So that's interesting. And last but not least, the Emmys. Directing, writing, music direction, all won.
He all won for all those at the Emmys?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
God, I love
I mean,
him.
that's a
Good
legitimate
job.
show. That's pretty cool.
Good job, Bo.
He had 6 nominations, 3 wins. So
Hell yeah.
take that as you will. Yeah, obviously you could say he deserved more, but I don't take much or actually the Emmys aren't too bad. The Grammys are the worst.
Yeah.
We talked about this on the La La Land podcast a bit too. We don't have any other juice that we need to hit right here.
Yeah, I don't have
think
anything
we
for the
really need
Oscars because they don't have an Oscar.
I can't wait
I
for
will
when you
say-
guys do this
or
year of
hold
Oscars for the Golden Pursuits, because I promise I will pop
Oh,
in
dude.
every category.
I'm telling
Hey
you.
guys, guess what movie should get this?
Me-
Inside.
I told
I got-
Vikash this.
I got
already
one did.
Okay, I was gonna say
He's
me and
gonna block me.
Vikash arguing over between Inside and Dune for best production design is going to be the highlight of our
I'm so
podcasting
excited.
career.
Y'all better start like creating your arguments so then you're ready in a couple years.
You're acting like we need a dissertation on. You're acting like I'm gonna write 200 pages on that.
You're not gonna write it, but you're gonna
just
say
gonna
it.
speak 200 pages worth of words.
So I think with all the awards that are actually present, that he got a lot of accolades for this for Inside, but Bo Burnham very much made this project himself outside of a couple things, and even then people do get help like that. But if he had just made it like for himself and posted it on YouTube and not gotten any awards, would it make any difference? Like, I think it's very much an issue of, like I said, they're trying to put you in a box. There's walls and fences that are being made within, like, why is there politics within art? It should be praised for what it's giving us. And whether that's relevant or not, time shows that. But it's like, it's not any less good or less bad that it got nominated or it didn't get nominated. This very much could have just been a thing that they put on YouTube and it would have lived that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was on YouTube, I think I would still have the same reaction. But that's
we just wouldn't be talking about it like a film because
we
like
wouldn't be able to
released
really
through one of
talk
those
about it on
avenues.
the pod in the same capacity, if
I would
at all.
I'd argue it. I
would be down, but you know what I mean? It would be a harder argument to make kind of deal. But no,
I mean,
it's
but that's the
impressive.
problem.
I love it.
It's we just need to take those walls down where we can. That's all it is. Is like, if you see something, I mean, we can talk about it if it's compelling and it's at that, obviously, that format, right? It's still the same format. It's just where he released it is different. That's all. So, hitting it hard, legacies for Bo Burnham's Inside. We have been through about 3 years from the release of this. He had the Inside outtakes that came out a couple years ago. But even then, what are the thoughts that you have, Zach, for the legacy of this piece from Bo Burnham?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to go the opposite. I want to know what's next for Bo because he hasn't had a long career. And looking at his IMDb, all I see is that he's just starring in a Sesame Street movie. I don't see anything about what he's making next. And I kind of wonder what phase of his career he's in. He's made now 2 great movies, and it doesn't seem like he's done much else since Inside that I know of. And what's next for him? Like, really, like, is there something I don't know? Do one of you two know something?
No.
This man's living in the Spike Jonze life. That's the problem, isn't it?
Unfortunately, some of my favorite directors is Spike Jonze and Bo Burnham now, and both of them are just like, I'll do it when I feel like it. I'm like, no, do this more, please, for me.
I mean, I had mine. Mine was basically the same thing. I look forward to what else he makes, and I encourage him to continue to pursue really creative projects that have the same type of energy that Inside has. It doesn't need to have the same message or the same format or anything, but like that level of passion that he had for that project, I would love to see, but I know it was probably just a combination of circumstances, and honestly, those are impossible circumstances to recreate. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we'll ever see something in the same way. That being said,
yeah,
I really look forward to what he has to offer, and I encourage the same thing. Love that he had for it.
I think we see a lot of the same stuff that he's doing, but we might see it maybe in a documentary film or something like that.
I would love to see a doc.
Matthew Heineman is someone who quite literally inputs himself. It's just him, a camera, and maybe another person with a camera. And he's doing documentary work, whether that's in Syria, whether he was on the front lines during COVID with, medical professionals, or he's at war, like in Afghanistan, things like that. And what Bo is doing is something that's, I think the legacy is what he's done and what he's giving us as a lesson, which means that he himself made this bold thing. It's very confident, emotionally relevant, but it's a reminder of what art should be, and that even within the darkest moments, we can get through the dread to find something that's maybe questioning what our lives are in this world and everything in between, that's kind of keeping us sane. And that's what he did with this. And it's like, yeah, we need an outlet for this, but it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, I'm just going to talk about this and that's it. Try to be creative with it. Try to have something actually to say. And Bo, obviously, we don't see any of it, but he spent so much time writing this thing. I think he spent more time writing this than shooting this, because like the shooting part was probably easy for him. And it's just, we should be, as people, as artists, you should try to maybe instill yourself within it. He kind of blurs the line of like what's real and what's fake, but he does know as a person, like, this is what I should be chasing, and he chases it, right? We see him like say, oh, one more. We see the process that he's going through, and he's like, oh, the narrative of this really is me having this breakdown, and how am I going to resolve this for myself? And he kind of talks about a little bit of like how of ending it kind of came to be for him in the outtakes themselves. But I think it's a testament of like, what has Spielberg done for cinema? It's like,
Yeah.
that's one man. What has he done? And it's like, Spielberg's been outside in the world doing it, but this is Bo Burnham sitting in a room doing this himself. And I'd rather wholeheartedly think that he did make this like in a room by himself, but I think that 100%, I know that he believes that he'd rather be with people in the world making something rather than sitting in that room. Because this is purgatory and that is excess. It's a blessing to be outside. And he does not want to be in this solitary confinement, because in his solitary confinement, he's spending his entire days thinking about the world and trying to put that into perspective. Mm-hmm. That's the legacy for me.
No, I agree. I was just looking
we get to see something from him soon.
I was looking at his IMDb and I was scrolling through his thing. And upcoming as a writer and producer, there's an untitled project. And it's a comedy. And the description says, a pair of high school outcasts dress up as superheroes and go after the bullies who taunt them. So I'm thinking that he loves to work in this genre.
Oh, never mind.
Right?
Never mind.
I'm thinking that he likes to work in the genre of like middle school to high school age, because he did 8th grade. And it looks like he's doing another school-based one. It says high school. There's no details, obviously.
That sounded very sus the way you said it.
Do you want me to rephrase it? Sorry, I'm just processing it externally here.
I'm just joking.
I can't be teased anymore tonight.
Well, it's a thing where, like I said, he can relate to these characters.
That's what I'm wondering, is maybe he relates to these characters, and so he kind of enjoys working on projects that focus more on a youth audience or youth like casting. That being said, it's untitled. There's no details other than that one sentence. So, I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen with it. I just saw it now, but I look forward to seeing how that goes, and I hope to see more from him, because he really has got some talent. And I would say that he has what is currently, or at least what was, a relatively unique story on how he got into the industry. YouTubers are popular, but YouTubers don't hit this level that he's been achieving.
YouTube is seen in the classic media. It's seen as almost being a belittlement. Like, I've heard it from these people that if they go up and tell somebody, "Oh, I'm a YouTuber," they will literally walk away.
Oh yeah, people don't take you seriously. People don't take you seriously, and like that's real work.
But I will say there are certain people that give it a bad name. Like, there's this guy, he was just doing this shock value stuff at Billie Eilish, and the second time she saw him, she literally turned around and was like, "Oh, like, hell no, I'm not doing this," and she got out of there.
I don't blame
And he chased
her.
after her.
Oh no. Anyone that chases after another person like that, I don't know. I'm just having like horror movie in my brain right there. If a man chased me, I think I would die right on the
Zach
spot.
Okay.
Zach, never chase after your wife.
No,
if she's in trouble, don't chase her.
Let her go.
Okay, let's.
I was thinking of Let It Go from Frozen.
Let's get on to MVP.
Cool.
What do you mean MVP, most valuable player? Like Catie says,
projector.
like, you the MVP, mom. Well,
okay, we ain't doing that today. We ain't doing that today. It's
the camera. It's the
We ain't
camera.
doing
I
that
swear,
today.
it's the camera.
I'm already speaking for everybody here. The MVP is Bo Burnham. You are the MVP. Thank you for this.
No, Zach. Actually, let me ask you. Who directed this?
Steven Spielberg.
Bro, answer the question. Who directed this?
Would you have a fidget spinner?
He does.
Bro, I have a problem. Okay, just answer the question. It's gonna sound really good. Zach, for MVP, who directed this movie?
Bo Burnham.
Who wrote this?
Bo Burnham.
Who starred in this? Who sung this?
Bo Burnham. Sacco.
Who edited this?
Bo Burnham.
Who sound mixed this or co-sound mixed
Bo
this?
Burnham.
Okay, so who's the MVP?
Bo Burnham.
Put some respect on my brother's name. Okay, let's go.
It was an incredible feat of slow filmmaking. It's creative, it's conscious of the current world we live in, and best of all, it's still really fun to watch.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. It's still beautiful. I love it. And honestly, like, just fantastic all around. I mean, Homeboy edited some outtakes and shared it on YouTube just for the hell of it because he wanted to. And now they're available on Netflix as well. But he just threw that together, all him. Like, it's just so impressive. I'm so proud of him. I love it. I love to see it. I love to see artists create things and have them be like successful. I would comment and say that this is successful. Anyway.
I will say, when you're saying editing, it just reminded me that there's a lot of people that are on YouTube now that do not edit their own work anymore. They have editors that they pay to edit their work.
Do. There's a lot of people that do.
The era, in spite, like, it's because of the era that he was from, is that he had to edit it himself. So it's like, when you're an editor, whatever, you're doing this, you're doing cinema, no matter what you're doing, the editing itself is going to get you a better eye of what you're doing. And that's a testament to Bo, yet again, as to why he's an MVP for this. And if you told me that he is behind the camera on something else, then I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
That being said, my companion movies, films, pieces, he directed Gerard Carmichael's Rothaniel. The content within that is fantastic. It's a comedy special, stand-up special, but Bo's directing on it is quite fantastic. And if you like stand-up, if you like Bo Burnham, I recommend that you check that out. Y'all haven't seen Rothaniel, right?
No, I don't believe so.
The emotional juice is good there. The second one, which I very much like, you could watch it tonight and you're gonna like maybe cry, is Derek Delgadio. It's called In and of Itself. It's on Hulu. It's directed by Frank Oz, aka Yoda. He performs this play and he's got an audience with him, but what unfolds within it is extremely compelling, and I think y'all will love it. So y'all should check that out. Anybody listening should check out Derek Delgadio, In and of Itself. It's on Hulu. I think it's sadly the only place you can find it. And last but not least, I was saying this before, if you're fascinated with Process, one of the best Process films ever made was not made by Francis Ford Coppola, but it's made about Francis Ford Coppola by his wife, and it's called The Heart of Darkness doc. And Zach, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's from Apocalypse Now, one of the most hellish filmmaking experiences ever done, a la Mad Max or The Revenant or something like that. And maybe that doesn't even touch the whole, thing of like people having heart attacks and things like that. But Heart of Darkness was the making of Apocalypse Now. So, Kat, you have 4 movies to watch. You have 1 comedy special, Heart of Darkness. You could watch Apocalypse Now, literally cinema, and then watch the making of it. And you'll be like, how did they make this, right? Because it is that horrifying. And obviously, Derek Delgadio, in and of itself, you will cry. You will love it.
I'm excited.
Literally, as we've been going, I've been deleting and typing in different companion movies. So what I want to give to everybody is, I mentioned it before, but I didn't say the name. It's a documentary called Exit Through the Gift Shop. It's about the elusive artist named Banksy, who does graffiti that is also very political, but also very mysterious, if it's a person or a group of people. And
literally just put up a new piece this week in London, like literally this week, that we're shooting.
Still relevant. And there's this documentary is directed by Banksy, allegedly, and about him, but we still don't know who that person is or that group of people are. So it hits that meta element that you also get from Inside, where it's like, how much of this is real and how much of it isn't. This is on a different wavelength than that, but it's that same concept. If you want to watch a piece of experimental performance art in that realm, this is it. So that's my suggestion.
In and of itself is very much that. And it's something where like Derek Delgadio performed it multiple times through, it's like in New York, I think in the West Village. So there's some faces actually in the audience that you see later in the film, like, holy crap, isn't that dude? I'm not going to spoil who's in it, but some noticeable faces. But Kat, companion movies or a companion list, I feel like you probably got a lot.
Only a couple. It's not a lot. So as I've said throughout the whole episode, if you haven't seen the outtakes, go and watch the outtakes. They're available on both YouTube and Netflix. Highly recommend. You have to watch it with the original. Fantastic. Like, I put Inside as a 10 and I put the outtakes as a 9. And the only reason the outtakes are a 9 is because Inside is a 10. Like, it was like comparison. But that being said, we talked about it earlier off the pod, and The Rehearsal would be a fantastic rec because it toes the line of reality, like Zach said, with what's real and what's not. The Rehearsal's really funny. It's Nathan Fielder. Love Nathan Fielder. But I also recommend Parks and Recreation, Season 6, Episode 19, Flu Season 2. Chip McCap, that is Bo Burnham. he guessed.
Oh yeah, he shows up in it.
One of the episodes.
So Chip,
he's an asshole country singer.
Let me set the scene.
Oh yeah, he's so funny.
So they're trying to.
He's so funny.
They're trying
5
to get
minutes.
in Parks and Rec. they're trying to get guests for the Unity concert that
the
they
Unity
have for
concert,
this town
yes.
issue that they're having.
Unity
And
concert.
Bo comes out of nowhere. He's
Asshole
supposed to be
country
this
singer.
very great country singer, and he's like, Dad, I wanted him on this. And it's like, and he's like just so terrible, and he's so hilarious in it.
So bad.
And he's channeling a different energy.
It's so funny though. I looked at his stuff and I remembered that he was on Parks and Rec, and I started cackling to myself earlier. I'm like, this is going on my list. But I mean, that's all I really got. I was trying to see if I could find anything that had the same energy as Inside, but I mean, it's such a unique piece that it's hard to find and pair with. And honestly, I think y'all got the recommendations that would work for it.
Yeah, I highly recommend the 3 that I have, because all 3 of them give me like a very different but very, deep emotional response. Because one of them is, I think 2 of them are actually all 3 of them are very much like people down in their feelings, and there's very specific things going on that are extremely honest. So obviously one's a documentary, one's a stand-up special, and then the other one's kind of a play. So I didn't actually go with a movie per se. I mean, technically it's a documentary. It's almost a bonus feature, but it's so totally not, because trust me, Kat, some crazy stuff happens in that. But I'm glad that you brought up Inside. It's obviously been something that's relevant in your head. I don't know how much you think about this.
I don't remember how did we circle back to this? Did we like scroll through what movies we had watched? Because I only just started logging my movies on Letterboxd in the fall.
I think it was probably because I had postulated like, oh, I want to do a birthday movie, aka force y'all to watch a movie. So I have to be equal and say that y'all get one too.
Oh, I think we were.
I
think when you said that, Zach and I were like, okay, what movie would be funny to make him watch? And then I started listing off my like classic movies that I love, like my OG, like Spaceballs, Princess Bride. Those were my first 2 that came to head, because those are my 2 of my favorite movies. Like all-time favorite. Princess Bride's been my favorite movie since I was like 9 years old. But then I think we had to scroll through Zach's Letterboxd, because I only just started logging my movies recently. And when we were scrolling, we saw a couple, but Inside stood out, and I'm like, holy shit, we gotta do Inside. And then we were also looking at musicals earlier that month too, and I was like, musical March, Inside. I think we were like, I think
part of it was like, it was like, hey, what's a movie that we might not ever do on the pod unless there's like a special reason? And Inside was one of them where it's like, we all love it, but it's not really a movie you would think of, hey, let's have a discussion about in our format that we have. So that's how it came about. I mean, I'm happy you chose it. Like I said, it's still my favorite movie from the 2020s somehow. I expected it to be replaced by now, and it still hasn't, which is a good thing, though. So thank you for picking it. I've had a great time talking about it.
Yeah.
It's been replaced for me, but we'll talk about those movies later, because that's just how it works. Because
we're
it's
also
like,
coming up on 3
depends on
hours.
what relates to you, what's grasping on, your tension in the brain that you have today. So it's always interesting to see what's going on. But that is Inside, Bo Burnham's Inside. We'll be back with another fantastic movie next episode. Peace and love, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Happy birthday, Kat.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Cinema Pursuit. Cinema Pursuit is produced by Catie Nadell, Zach Nadell, and Vikas Patel. Special thanks to Cole Cooper for the intro and outro music. You can listen to Cinema Pursuit on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you may listen to podcasts. Follow us on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Cinema Pursuit Podcast, Twitter or X at Cin Pursuit Pod, and check out our subreddit, r/Cinema Pursuit.